Daichi's house was a nexus of immense magical energy. Consequently, on an ordinary day, he was suddenly transported by a witch from another dimension. The entire plot of land, the house, and Daichi himself were all shifted to a different world. Daichi, asleep inside his own house, was awakened by a blinding light from outside. Waking up, he was enveloped in confusion as he looked around. It was definitely his house, but inexplicably, the outside had transformed into a dense forest, with dragons soaring in the sky above. He couldn't comprehend how he woke up in such a distant and unfamiliar place. Indeed, he had returned home on the last train the previous night after a taxing day of work, followed by a dull year-end party. Thinking his mind was just clouded, he decided to return to bed. Yet again, Daichi was rudely awakened by a cacophony of noise, causing him an unbearable headache. A group of people outside were loudly exclaiming about the extraordinary magical power emanating from this location. Others cautioned each other not to approach the house, deeming it too dangerous. The house's magical essence was so volatile and untamed that even an army of witches couldn't subdue it. Unable to tolerate the noise any longer, Daichi flung open his door to investigate the disturbance. To his astonishment, he was greeted by the sight of an assembly of witches in front of his house. Daichi, in a loud and irritated tone, questioned why they were creating such a ruckus, resembling a noisy marketplace, and trespassing on his property. Angrily, he expressed his frustration about his severe headache due to lack of sleep. Daichi thought these delicate individuals must certainly be looking for a scolding. He yelled out in exasperation, only to be shocked, and his yell transformed into a whirlwind that almost blew the witches away. One of the witches speculated whether such a powerful gust could be the work of a demon, as even their princess struggled to stand against it. The group then started pleading for Daichi's mercy, begging not to be harmed. Awkwardly, he explained that he only wanted to drive them away because of their noise. Still puzzled by the bizarre turn of events, Daichi seized the witch princess, demanding to know if she had any insights into what was happening. Terrified, Princess Diana revealed that Daichi's house and land were filled with magical energy. It contained an immense and fearsome amount of magic, which also influenced Daichi, endowing him with such a staggering amount of magical power. Another witch approached, calling to the princess. They realized their presence there was futile and decided to leave. Princess Diana used instant teleportation to whisk everyone away. Daichi watched them disappear in surprise, still in disbelief that an ordinary office worker like him could unleash a whirlwind with a shout. At this point, he had to accept the reality that he had been transported to a new world. Far from being scared, Daichi found everything fascinating. He looked up at the sky and whispered to himself how wonderful it was. After a while, still standing outside, he talked to himself, feeling incredibly cool and excited about the possibility of being in a different world. Daichi imagined this as a new adventure, planning to survive by fishing and using natural resources. Thinking about food, he rushed inside to check the kitchen cabinets and, to his surprise, found them still stocked with food. His clothes, pillows, and mattresses were also untouched. Realizing everything inside his house remained the same, he felt relieved and decided to go back to sleep. Lying in bed, Daichi mumbled about his 60-year-old house, feeling sleepy as soon as he relaxed. However, he was soon awakened by a loud noise. Startled, he sat up, wondering what was happening outside. It was Princess Diana's voice again. They had teleported away, but unexpectedly landed right in a dragon's nest. Daichi listened carefully and realized it was the same spectral voices as before. The princess's voice echoed, announcing that the magic was only strong enough to teleport 2 people. The others behind her were terrified, not knowing how to escape as the dragon rapidly approached them. Everyone felt the situation was dire, with Daichi's magically powerful house in front and a pursuing dragon behind. Daichi felt the urge to rush out and fight the dragon. Princess Diana, despite her fear, explained that she was royalty and couldn't allow her subjects to be in danger. Inside the house, Daichi, unable to sleep due to the noise, felt a headache coming on. He opened the door again to scold them, demanding they quiet down so he could sleep. Daichi's shout was so powerful that it instantly killed the dragon, while the witches, now understanding the situation, sought shelter from the danger. Daichi covered his mouth in shock, not believing that his shout had such an effect. Princess Diana approached him, asking about his intentions. She explained she was just trying to protect her subjects' lives. Daichi, indifferent to their lives, asked her if she could somehow remove the dragon's massive corpse, as it was an eyesore. Diana was perplexed. Daichi was asking her to remove a dragon, a creature that even 10 adventurers couldn't capture. Dragon scales were highly valuable, and its heart was a magical catalyst more potent than any gemstone. Diana questioned again if he was really willing to give them such a valuable creature. Daichi appeared unconcerned, suggesting they take it away. He emphasized that they should not come back, so he could sleep in peace. Using her remaining magic, Diana transported the dragon away, promising to repay this debt. Daichi slept soundly until the next afternoon when he was awakened by a gentle voice of a girl announcing that lunch was ready. Daichi, looking at the girl, whispered to himself, wondering if he forgot to lock the door. The girl replied that the door was locked, and no one was allowed in except for him. Curious, Daichi asked who she was and why she was in his house. The girl introduced herself as Sakura, the spirit of the house he was living in. Hearing the name Sakura, Daichi remembered the main pillar of his house made from a sakura tree. Sakura was touched that her master remembered her. Daichi's uncle had once told him that cherrywood pillars were extremely rare, making their house unique. Sakura, smiling at Daichi, guessed that being transported to another world must have been tiring for him. She brought up a meal she had prepared herself using ingredients from the fridge, inviting her master to eat. Daichi's eyes lit up with delight as he exclaimed how delicious the food was. But he was puzzled about how the refrigerator could still operate without electricity. Sakura explained that she had used magic to maintain the power supply for the house. She also mentioned that the water supply was sustained through an underground spring, thanks to her magic. Daichi marveled at how wonderful magic was, seemingly able to accomplish anything. While eating, he asked Sakura why he had been brought to this place. She explained that their house, the land it was on, and Sakura herself had become a focal point of magical energy. Daichi remembered the spectral witches mentioning something similar. Sakura clarified that it was actually a dragon vein, a convergence of various powerful energies. Moreover, these powers were concentrating inside Daichi's body. Since his birth and throughout his life in the house, magical energy, or the dragon vein, had been accumulating in him. Daichi realized that this was why his shout had such a powerful effect on the dragon. However, he understood that this was just a fraction of his potential power. He could achieve even greater effects with deliberate use of magic. They decided to go outside to test this newfound power, avoiding any damage to the house. Walking around the garden, Daichi discovered that the spectral witches had already wreaked havoc there. Sakura, observing the ruined garden, asked Daichi how he planned to use his magic. Recalling that they were running low on food, Daichi wished to grow something to ensure a steady food supply. Sakura suggested cleaning up the forest area and then transforming the surroundings into a fruit orchard for sustenance. She produced a juicy apple to plant and start the orchard. Daichi, looking at the desolate garden, thought it wouldn't be easy. Sakura reassured him that with his magical abilities, growing a garden could be as easy as pie. If he wasn't yet comfortable using magic himself, he could channel it through her to create the garden. Meanwhile, Princess Diana was struggling to carry the gold she obtained from selling the dragon's parts to Daichi. She wanted to quickly repay her debt to the mysterious man. Unable to allow her subjects to venture into such a dangerous place, Diana had to come herself. Tiredly dragging the heavy bags of gold, she lamented that if she had enough magical power left, she could have easily transported the gold to Daichi. Exhausted, Diana noticed a dragon with rainbow-colored scales appearing in the sky. It was a rare and powerful dragon, belonging to the highest tier of strength and magic. This rare dragon species, Diana thought, was likely attracted by the magical nexus. While Daichi and Sakura were creating an orchard full of ripe apples, the dragon arrived. Daichi, uncertain what the strange dragon wanted, knew he had to act quickly. It was approaching Sakura, seemingly intent on taking her away. Daichi was in a dilemma. He couldn't just shout as he had done before, as it would endanger Sakura as well. His only option was to use magic, even though he was worried about not having Sakura's guidance. To his surprise, the dragon released Sakura. Daichi looked at the dragon struggling in the sky and remarked on its resilience. Sakura speculated that the dragon might have been drawn here due to the magical nexus. Daichi's stomach growled with hunger, which Sakura attributed to his excessive use of magic. From the information Sakura gathered from nature and the trees, dragon meat was known to be delicious. Daichi, looking at Sakura's cute face, thought it was inappropriate to discuss such things. He wondered if the dragon's meat was poisonous. He believed in protecting rare creatures, but if it kept targeting him, he had no choice. Sakura began instructing Daichi on using magic to capture the dragon. The key to magic, she explained, was imagination. He just needed to convey his intention as specifically as possible. Step by step, Daichi joyfully used his magic to subdue the large dragon. His magic, when directed by his thoughts, was indeed terrifyingly powerful. Daichi, looking at the dragon's corpse, asked Sakura how they should proceed. She suggested leaving the rest to her, as she had gathered relevant knowledge while collecting information. With their combined magical abilities, they could accomplish anything. Soon after, Sakura served Daichi a dish made from the rainbow dragon steak. Trying a small piece, Daichi exclaimed at its deliciousness, melting in his mouth. Knowing this, Sakura had used magical refrigeration to preserve the meat they had gathered that day. Daichi remarked how interesting and fulfilling a self-sustaining life in this world was. Unbeknownst to them, the magic they used to capture the dragon had affected Diana, who was struggling to bring gold to repay them. After fainting for a while, Diana regained consciousness as the sky darkened, feeling terrible. She guessed that the recent magical disturbance was caused by the peculiar Daichi. The development of the apple orchard proceeded exceptionally smoothly. Sakura happily admired the orchard, praising Daichi as a true master of this land, marveling at his remarkable capabilities. She joyfully informed Daichi that he had now mastered the use of magic for apple cultivation. She suggested they take a step further. Before proceeding, Sakura would demonstrate, asking Daichi to simply touch her to transfer the magic. Shortly after, a figure made from the apple tree was created. Daichi, puzzled by this strange creation, listened as Sakura explained it was a scarecrow fashioned from the apple tree itself. He just needed to command it, and it could perform tasks like harvesting apples or tidying up the garden, which was very convenient. Daichi realized how magic made everything much more convenient. Suddenly, during their conversation, Sakura's expression changed to a more serious demeanor. Daichi, standing beside her, noticed and asked what was wrong. Without much time to explain, Sakura urged Daichi to quickly merge their thoughts. The process of unifying their thoughts happened rapidly, and afterward, Daichi noticed something appearing above his head. Sakura explained it was a bird's-eye view map of the surrounding lands. Her memories were now unified with Daichi's, meaning he would also sense everything she could. Daichi, surprised and then delighted, laughed at this newfound ability. Truly, Sakura lived up to her reputation as the spirit of the house. As he calmed down, Sakura informed him that currently, 65 monsters, attracted by the magic, were converging on their location. To communicate this accurately, she had synchronized her memory and feelings with Daichi's. Meanwhile, in the distance, Garu Garyun, the leader of the werewolf clan ruling the border of the magical forest, had caught the scent. He approached with weapons, astonished to find such a rich source of magical energy at this location. Garu Garyun, the werewolf clan leader, believed this area would be perfect for his kin, a place to reign supreme over the forest. He ordered his troops to swiftly move into position for an attack. Daichi, anxious, asked Sakura what they could do in this situation, wondering if they should just stay inside the house. The werewolf clan leader bellowed orders similar to those he had given during the destruction of the city of Chimera, instructing his troops to cleanse the area for him. He then commanded the first squad to notify the entire army to quickly form a siege around the area. Inside, Daichi asked Sakura if the noise outside was from the enemy approaching, targeting the magic of their house. Furious at the intrusion into his domain, Daichi yelled, declaring war and vowing to show the invaders the taste of his power. The werewolf army, numbering 65, continued their advance. The clan leader ordered them to tighten the encirclement rapidly, paying attention to coordination and acting in unison. Daichi, looking at the map, cursed as the enemy was already at their doorstep, targeting the magic within his house. He felt overwhelmed, facing 65 werewolves alone. Beside him, Sakura encouraged Daichi to use her power if necessary. Since they were synchronized, they could use magic to create traps anywhere Daichi desired. Realizing the potential of their synchronized abilities, Daichi saw the enemy divided into 6 groups and urged Sakura to act quickly. 6 scarecrows, made from the bodies of apple trees, rapidly took shape and grew in size. The werewolves, taken aback, questioned what these figures were. After a moment, they realized the magic of these tree figures wasn't from living beings, they were scarecrows. The squad leader from behind shouted, questioning how such enormous scarecrows could suddenly appear, towering into the sky. The frontline werewolves, ignoring their leader's remarks, stared in disbelief at the growing scarecrows. They were baffled by the operation of these scarecrows, unsure of how they worked. The werewolves, unsure how to react to the immense scarecrows absorbing magic from the area, were left standing helplessly, calling for aid against these enormous creatures. The team leader was trying to assist his fellow werewolves, but soon realized that all the squads he had divided were faced with golems. It dawned on him that he and his werewolves had fallen into a trap. Inside, Daichi, controlling the golems, declared this land as his territory and that any uninvited intruders would not be forgiven. Sakura, impressed by his performance, complimented Daichi on his skillful handling of the golems. Daichi bashfully admitted that it was just a fluke that he created such effective traps. His stomach growled again, a side effect of using so much magic. Sakura suggested she'd prepare another meal for him, as he hadn't rested since morning. Meanwhile, the nearby city of Prosia experienced a brief moment of crisis due to the appearance of the giant golems. Unaware of the stir they caused, Daichi and Sakura were cheerfully preparing food. A week passed, and during his free time, Daichi wandered around the house, contemplating how different his life had become in this new world compared to his routine back home. Suddenly, Sakura came out with concerning news: a group of beasts was planning to infiltrate their land. Daichi, who thought he had grown accustomed to life in this new world, realized he was still not used to dealing with invaders. He asked Sakura to synchronize with him to get a better view of the situation. He saw a group of werewolves approaching, this time with a carriage. Their demeanor seemed different from before, more serious and with fewer numbers. Daichi speculated that their intention might not be hostile this time. Daichi told Sakura that there was no need for traps this time. As the werewolves approached, he questioned their purpose for coming. The werewolf clan leader, recognizing Daichi as the king of the magical land, bowed down with his followers, introducing themselves as the werewolves ruling the edge of the magical forest. Geru, the clan leader, again knelt, acknowledging Daichi as their king and pledging allegiance to him. He even offered his sister as a sacrificial offering to Daichi. Daichi observed the werewolf girl, who looked human except for her additional ears and tail. Geru urged Daichi to eat his sister, claiming she possessed high-level magic among the werewolves, which would enhance Daichi's own magic if he consumed her. Outraged, Daichi shouted, questioning why he would be asked to eat someone, calling them foolish. He told Geru to come closer, clarifying that he had no intention of becoming their king, nor did he plan to eat anyone. He added that if they agreed to coexist peacefully, he would overlook their past intentions to harm him. Geru was surprised by Daichi's forgiveness, despite their previous malicious intent. Geru loudly proclaimed their surrender, saying Daichi could command them as he wished. Daichi's command was simply for them not to bother him anymore. He helped Geru's sister, Lily, to stand up and told them not to harm anyone again. The werewolf siblings embraced, crying and relieved. Daichi thought to himself that despite being werewolves, they were not so different from humans. He whispered for them to leave quickly if everything was settled. Before departing, Geru wanted to leave an offering for Daichi and Sakura, presenting all the treasures from their stockpile as a gesture of goodwill. Daichi accepted only a small portion, returning the rest to them. Meanwhile, Diana had spent a long time traveling to the Medes kingdom and its capital, Prosa. Determined to meet the landowner Daichi, she was nearing his land. Daichi and Sakura continued to take care of their apple orchard, fostering a peaceful life amidst the magical land. Today, Daichi discovered an unusual golden apple. Curious about its edibility, he considered trying it. Sakura, having found a similar apple, was also intrigued and wanted to taste it. Agreeing, they both decided to eat the apples. Daichi noted the intense sweetness, but soon after, he felt a change in his body. Hearing a voice near his hand, he asked Sakura if she had said something. Then, they both clearly heard the conversation of two dragons overhead, discussing the Dragon King's prohibition against coming to this land due to the risk of being eaten. Sakura, incredulous, questioned if they were indeed hearing dragon voices and why they could understand them. She speculated that the apple might contain dragon magic, wondering if eating the apple enabled them to hear dragon voices. Previously, they had slain a small dragon in the area, and its blood, rich in magical energy, might have infused the land around their house with dragon magic. Sakura guessed that this might be why the apple had such an effect. Daichi mused that the apple indeed seemed to carry a special blessing. He suggested that eating more such apples might grant them additional skills from the blood of various creatures. They planned to experiment with this idea when they had time. Their attention was drawn by a loud noise at the edge of the garden. They found the spectral girl Diana caught in one of Daichi's traps. Annoyed, Daichi asked her how long she intended to cause trouble. Diana, gathering her courage, said she had something important to discuss and seemed on the verge of tears. Remembering something, she reintroduced herself, unhappy with Daichi's previous nickname for her. Daichi thought her change of topic was dizzyingly fast, recalling she was the one who first called him the landowner. Diana then presented 2 large bags filled with gold, explaining it was compensation for the flying dragon incident. Daichi's day had taken an unexpected turn with the discovery of the magical apples and Diana's sudden appearance, bringing yet another twist to his life in this magical world. Daichi looked at the money, realizing he could live a life of leisure for a whole year with this amount. In his current world, this would definitely be a significant sum. He asked why she had gone to such lengths to bring these things to him. Diana explained that it was because he had saved their lives before, so the money was a token of gratitude. Daichi's attention was drawn to the loud roar of a dragon in the sky. A dragon that had just flown in announced that it had called its comrades. True to its word, Daichi saw several dragons approaching. The dragon, who had gone to inform its comrades, excitedly reported that when it mentioned a person whom the Dragon King had warned was dangerous and not to be approached, everyone wanted to test their strength and flocked there. Daichi thought these creatures were too noisy, wondering where these types of creatures that flew over his head and planned to eat him came from. Standing beside him, Diana looked at the large number of approaching dragons and asked him what was happening. Why were so many dragons converging on this place? The sky was now filled with dragons, creating a desperate and crisis situation. Diana, panicked, kept asking why there were so many dragons gathering. Daichi, remaining calm, asked if she was some kind of bad luck goddess, as every time she came here, something happened. Diana, with a trembling voice, apologized to them, scared. He hadn't expected that she would actually apologize for his joke. Hearing their conversation, it seemed the dragon's target was him. Daichi didn't want any trouble, but since they were here, he had to fight them. Diana skeptically asked if he planned to fight all those dragons alone. Daichi ignored her question as a dragon overhead prepared to dive down first, commanding the others to follow suit. Diana, seeing them heading their way, shouted in panic that they were coming. Despite her fear, Diana decided to go up and help him as much as she could. She reassured herself that, although it was a powerful dragon species, they were still just beasts. Diana believed that with all her magic, she could annihilate them, using the spear of the Flame Emperor to burn them to ashes. Watching the leading dragon being overwhelmed in the flames, Diana was overjoyed that she had succeeded. But immediately after, the dragon emerged from the flames, easily flying towards them. Diana asked what had just happened, questioning why even her strongest magic couldn't harm the dragon. Given its resilience, it might have been a high-tier dragon species, and now there were more than 10 of them. Standing beside her, Daichi could hear the dragons discussing among themselves, concluding that humans weren't as dangerous as rumored. Some of the dragons, still fearful, hesitated to advance, so the leading dragon decided that they should all charge at once. Hearing this, Daichi shouted a warning that they were planning a collective attack. He told Diana to move aside and leave him space to deal with them. Diana didn't move, insisting that she could still fight. She felt embarrassed always being saved by him and was determined to help them this time. With Daichi's help, Diana managed to take down the first dragon. The rest of the dragons realized that, just as their dragon king had warned, they should not have approached this place. They retreated quickly. Diana couldn't believe what had just happened, wondering if Daichi's presence had somehow enhanced her magical powers. Having exhausted all her energy, Diana collapsed to the ground. Looking up, she saw Daichi, still as calm as if nothing had happened. After a moment, Daichi told her to take this flying dragon back with her. He didn't care whether his support had truly amplified her magic or not. He added that she had tried hard to defeat it this time, so she should take it with her to keep him satisfied. Diana, once again, mentioned the high value of dragons, but Daichi always let her take them. She asked if he was unhappy with her, wondering if it was because of her that he and his house had been summoned here, preventing him from returning. Daichi loudly questioned if she was the reason he couldn't go back, then reconsidered his stance, realizing that no matter where he was, he still had a home beside him. He enjoyed lazing around in his own house the most. Hearing this, Diana felt relieved. Her magic was depleted, so she planned to return for the dragon that night. Watching her leave, Daichi shouted that she better not bring any more dragons next time she visits. He ordered the golem to remove the dragon from his property. Sakura, being kind-hearted, suggested that it would be easier for Diana to transport the dragon back if it was outside. That night, when Diana returned, she was surprised to find the dragon lying outside. Using instant teleportation, she took it back home as it was already late. Upon seeing the dragon brought back, the members of the Magic Knight Order were astonished and asked Diana what this was about. Diana explained that the dragon had been burnt by her spell. She asked them to exchange the dragon for money and contribute it to the nation's treasury. The knights were again astonished, noting that the scales of this dragon, a high-flying species, could withstand magic but had been burnt to a crisp. They asked the princess about the extent of her power, believing the previous head of the Knight Order would have been overjoyed to know this. Diana softly said that her master would have been happy if she had done it alone, but this time, she had assistance. This revelation made them even more surprised, and they exclaimed that such support would require a significant ritual. Diana was also puzzled. She had only needed to touch the dragon to receive support, indicating that only a supreme mage could have accomplished such a feat. Meanwhile, Daichi and Sakura, while visiting their garden, discovered a young girl gazing intently at their apple tree. Daichi, smiling, noted that this time the intruder was rather cute. He bent down to ask if the girl was lost. The girl didn't answer but pointed to the apple tree, asking if those were apples. Daichi continued smiling, confirming they were apples, though yellow in color. The girl seemed satisfied, saying she had seen many things during her travels. Daichi wondered if it was normal in this world for a child her age to travel alone. The girl extended her hand, introducing herself as Hesti and expressing happiness to meet them. Just then, her stomach growled, and Daichi asked if she was hungry. Hesti, confused, said she didn't know, as her stomach just made a noise. Daichi, somewhat skeptical about the girl's well-being, turned to Sakura to ask if the child could eat apples. Sakura, after checking, was surprised to find that the girl, Hesti, possessed a much higher amount of magical power than a normal child. Concealing her surprise, Sakura told Daichi that Hesti could eat the apples, noting that she had a significant amount of magical power. Daichi, while picking an apple, whispered to Sakura, asking if the girl really had a lot of magical power. Hesti, holding the apple, asked again if they were really giving her the apple. Daichi watched her eat the apple, skin and all, wondering if she was really that hungry. He turned to see Sakura also observing the girl with a smile. He asked Sakura if she liked children, noticing her joyful demeanor. Sakura happily replied that of course she liked children, recalling how energetic Daichi used to be as a child, playing all day. Daichi felt a bit embarrassed discussing this with a house. Hesti interrupted their conversation, complimenting the deliciousness of the apple but feeling that she was satisfied. Daichi, patting her head, was surprised by her use of complex words and invited her to come visit again whenever she had the chance. Hesti continued to praise the apple, thanking them but saying she had to return now. Daichi watched her leave, thinking she was a strange child but at least the most normal person they had met in this world. As Hesti left, not far away, a dragon awaited her, greeting her as the Dragon King upon her return. The dragon asked how her investigation went and what she learned about their combat potential. Hesti admitted she didn't want to fight them. She couldn't win against them and didn't want to destroy their place because Daichi was stronger than she thought and the apple was very tasty. However, the dragons were ready to attack on command, even though the smaller ones knew they were no match for Daichi. Hesti decided she would be the one to challenge Daichi, thinking that once the younger dragons saw his strength, they would retreat on their own. She said this battle was also a matter of survival for their dragon race. If Hesti won, Daichi would die. So, even if Daichi lost, it would be enough to make the foolish young dragons give up. Regardless of the outcome, Hesti, as the Dragon King, would retain her honor in defeat. The next morning, Daichi woke up to find his garden destroyed by the dragons. He loudly called for Sakura to come out and help. Sakura quickly arrived, asking what happened. Daichi, calmly looking at the garden, noted that it looked quite desolate because of the dragon's destruction. Daichi looked at the large rock in front of him, resembling a small mountain, and remarked that he couldn't fix the area with such a huge obstacle in the way. Therefore, he planned to use the golems to move it. He asked Sakura to synchronize with him to control the golems. After they were in sync, Daichi still felt the two golems were too small compared to the massive rock. He thought of combining them. By channeling magic into his hands, he could easily control them. Without hesitation, Daichi began using his hands to manipulate the bodies of the two golems. He was delighted to find that he could mold them like clay, making them extremely flexible. He was confident that this task would be easy. Daichi noticed how the golem's hands moved and laughed, asking Sakura why they were mimicking his movements. Sakura explained that the golems were probably mirroring his motions because they were synchronized, receiving magical energy from his hands and copying his movements. Daichi thought magic was incredibly cool and immediately came up with a new idea. Sakura watched him excitedly move around the two golems and laughed, noting that Daichi looked like an energetic child. Soon, Daichi combined the two wooden beings into one large wooden armor. Sakura was amazed, not believing that the creation was made from golems. Daichi, inside the armor, observed that although its appearance was a bit odd, he could control it. He then easily moved the initially large rock with the wooden armor. Daichi cheered, finding everything much easier with this armor. He called out to Sakura that they could now start repairing the garden. While repairing the garden, Daichi created a new type of weapon. He named it an anti-air weapon made from trees. By bending tree branches and embedding them in the ground, they could be triggered to launch up and shoot seeds into a target's trap. The repair and enhancement process became much easier with the creation of the wooden armor. Taking this opportunity, Daichi worked diligently to expand the garden and install many new traps. He looked at the renovated and enlarged garden with great satisfaction. He cheerfully went to find Sakura to boast about his accomplishments, having become quite accustomed to making these traps. However, while Daichi was happily talking about his achievements, Sakura suddenly fainted beside him. He rushed to support her, anxiously asking if she was all right. Sakura apologized to Daichi, asking him to forgive her as it seemed she had used too much magic. Sakura apologized, explaining that she was so happy working alongside Daichi in creating a new garden that she ended up using more magic than usual and didn't replenish it in time. Daichi, astonished, asked her about replenishing her magic. Sakura reassured him that she usually draws magic from ley lines, so it shouldn't be a problem, but she just needed some rest. Suddenly, a loud noise from the nearby house startled them. They saw the house beginning to collapse. Sakura apologized, explaining that the instability in her magic was weakening the house. Daichi, feeling helpless, asked if there was a way to fix it. Hesitantly, he suggested that he could transfer some of his magic to her. Daichi immediately said that he wouldn't mind doing that for her. He remembered always asking her if she didn't need rest or food. Sakura, while diligently taking care of the house, had mentioned that she found it difficult to sleep and food couldn't replenish her lost magical energy. Now, hearing Sakura mention the need for magic to recover, Daichi realized he had never seen her sleep or eat for recovery. He asked her if this was her usual way of replenishing magic. Sakura admitted that she had never experienced such a significant depletion of magic before that it affected the house so drastically. Daichi felt sorry for never realizing she was constantly replenishing her energy by herself and apologized for bringing up such a sensitive topic. Daichi asked again to confirm if receiving magic from him would help her recover faster. Sakura looked at him and confirmed that it would be better than resting by herself. Daichi noticed the cracks appearing all over the house, realizing it could collapse at any moment due to Sakura's condition. He asked once more if everything would return to normal once her mana was restored. The next morning, Daichi was surprised to wake up and see that his house now had an additional floor. The restoration of Sakura's magic must have not only stabilized the house but also led to its unexpected expansion. Daichi loudly exclaimed, confused about what had just happened. Sakura appeared and explained that the expansion was due to the excess magical energy Daichi had given her. As Daichi explored the new additions to the house, he was amazed by the spacious ground floor, complete with furniture. He complimented Sakura, who humbly insisted that she hadn't done much, it was all created from Daichi's magic. Despite Daichi also downplaying his role, they continued their tour to the second floor. Daichi felt a sense of home when he entered a room on the second floor. Opening a window, he noticed a small house in the backyard and asked Sakura if it was also newly created. He joked about how his effort to restore her magic led to so many unexpected creations. Sakura suggested that the new house could be rented out for its tranquility. Daichi playfully asked if she was now a landlady, agreeing to the idea if they found someone suitable in this world. Sakura was thrilled at the prospect of making their home more lively. Then, she hesitated before asking Daichi to continue staying on the second floor, expressing her wish not to be left alone. Daichi laughed heartily, assuring her that he had no intention of going anywhere else. This part of the house, with its familiar furniture and room layout, felt most like home to him. He expressed that while the house could expand, this area remained his true sanctuary, the place he least wanted to change. Sakura, hearing this, smiled joyfully and thanked Daichi. Daichi then looked at her and asked if she was really afraid of him leaving. Sakura admitted she was. She worried about what she would do if he preferred the new rooms and left this place. Daichi laughed loudly and asked what she would do if that really happened. Sakura naively said she would work hard to expand the main house even more, doing everything to make it perfect, as long as Daichi wanted it. Daichi sat for a while, then laughed and said he had no intention of moving. He told her not to worry about it anymore. As breakfast time approached, they ended their conversation there, having established a deeper understanding and comfort in their shared living space. A week later, Daichi looked at his house, puzzled by its seemingly unstoppable growth. To his surprise, in just 1 week, the house had grown an additional 7 floors. He reflected on the past week, realizing he had done nothing more than eat, sleep, and tend the garden, thinking how nice it was to live at such a leisurely pace. Sakura speculated that the large amount of magical energy Daichi had transferred to her might have caused this expansion. They concluded that just being together seemed to generate enough magic to keep expanding the house. Daichi gazed at the towering structure, wondering how tall it would eventually get. He acknowledged that the growth of the house wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but they needed to come up with a plan for the extra floors. Standing at the top floor, he pondered the security of the lower levels. Sakura reassured him that the golems would handle any intruders. While they were discussing atop the highest floor, Diana arrived, staring at the house in disbelief. After a moment, she exclaimed, questioning if Daichi's house had turned into a dungeon. Hearing the noise, Daichi looked down and saw Diana. He turned to Sakura and asked if she wanted to go down with him. Sakura pointed to an elevator, suggesting he use it. Daichi was surprised, asking if she could even create an elevator. Sakura laughed, saying she used magic to create something similar. She told him she would stay upstairs to prepare food. Daichi admired the convenience of magic, amused by himself for being excited about having a spacious, tall house. He appreciated the additional floors but was still unsure what to do with the empty ones. Putting that thought aside, he quickly descended to the ground floor using the elevator. Upon reaching Diana, he stopped and asked why she looked so worried. Diana laughed, relieved that she hadn't gone to the wrong place, although everything around her had drastically changed. Daichi, with a smile, said that a few things had happened since their last meeting, and he had managed to create some new stuff. Diana, still smiling, mentioned she had hoped to visit sooner as her work had become easier recently. She proudly told Daichi that she had started sleeping 2 days ago. Daichi wondered if that was normal, reminding him of his own days in the previous world, staying up all night to meet deadlines. While they were chatting, Diana mentioned she had a reason for her visit. She pulled out a large bag of gold, urging Daichi to accept it. Daichi calmly looked at the gold bag and said he didn't need money. Diana explained that it was a gesture of gratitude. Since Daichi's arrival, the entire area had been enveloped in magical energy, resulting in a bountiful harvest for farmers and high-quality animal products. Daichi humorously thought that he just needed to go outside, use a bit of magic, and everyone would be thankful. Diana added that the people wanted to thank him for bringing prosperity to the kingdom. Daichi, amused, said it seemed she didn't want to feel indebted without repaying, so he would accept the gold. He instructed a golem from inside the house to come and take the bag. Diana, startled, asked if it was necessary to call the golem, still fearful from her previous attack. She was even more terrified when she saw a large room filled with Daichi's golems. Hesitantly, Diana asked if he planned to invade her kingdom, considering the massive number of golems just for housekeeping. She jokingly mentioned having drunk too much fristy, reassuring herself that Daichi would never do such a thing. Daichi truthfully said he had no such desire, content with his current home and the forest. Diana felt relieved hearing this. Daichi informed her that despite being called golems, they were essentially just apple trees. He encouraged her to come closer and picked an apple from one of the golems, offering it to Diana. Diana could feel the magical energy emanating from the apple. Daichi commented that eating it could help her regain strength when tired. Diana, surprised by its restorative ability, asked again if he was sure about giving her such a valuable apple. She was unsure how to repay for such a precious gift. Daichi, nonchalantly, assured her that one apple was no big deal. As Diana left, Daichi thought about how each of her visits always stirred up excitement. He pondered the idea of meeting more people in this world, but the peculiar appearance of his house seemed out of place here. After some thought, Daichi came up with a solution. He decided to hide the additional floors underground. Now, his house looked like its original form from the outside, but the interior was vastly different. He used the basement as a storage area and the 6th sublevel as the golem's home. He even designed it so the golems could emerge from underground as a sort of secret defense mechanism. Satisfied with these changes, Daichi told Sakura that now their house wouldn't seem odd to outsiders. As they were finishing up the modifications, their first visitor arrived. Daichi noticed someone in a garden and asked if it was Hesti, who looked quite different from her last visit. Hesti admitted she had disguised herself previously, with makeup and a changed hairstyle. Her naturally white hair was too conspicuous, so her servant had dyed it. Daichi laughed, commenting that she must have many good friends. Hesti, speaking softly, said she didn't feel the need to disguise herself anymore, so she kept her natural appearance. Daichi asked if her not needing a disguise anymore meant she had found a safe place. He glanced at her outfit, noting that it resembled a kimono typically worn for funerals. Hesti noticed his gaze and asked if there was something wrong with her outfit. Daichi explained it looked like a type of clothing he had seen before, worn by families during a loss. Hesti, slightly upset, replied that it was the most beautiful dress she owned. Hesti acknowledged that Daichi was right about her dress, explaining she only wore it when making significant life or death decisions. Daichi remained silent, contemplating the gravity of the decision Hesti must have faced. Hesti then revealed that she had come to say goodbye and thank him for the apple he had given her previously. Daichi brushed it off as nothing significant, noting that people in this world seemed keen on not owing anyone anything. Hesti then took out a map of their world, pointing out various locations to Daichi. She offered to teach him about these places, but only if he was not already familiar with them. Daichi admitted his ignorance about the world beyond his home, expressing willingness to learn from her. Hesti circled a large area on the map and then pointed to a forest known for its high-quality magic stones, used by Prussia for crafting magical tools. Occasionally, these stones would combine to form a golem that was nearly indestructible due to its regenerative abilities. Daichi was intrigued, asking how one could possibly defeat such a powerful entity. Hesti produced a dragon scale, explaining that it could attract the golem to a desired location. Daichi was amused that the right material could eliminate the need for a fight. After some time teaching Daichi, Hesti's stomach growled. Daichi, out of habit, picked an apple for her. Watching Hesti sit on the ground eating the apple, he thought she looked like a pet. As she finished and the sky darkened, Hesti said goodbye and left. Before departing, she turned back to ask if she could return. Daichi waved goodbye with a cheerful smile, telling her she was welcome to visit anytime she wanted. Hesti returned and immediately encountered the dragon from before, which questioned why she hadn't fought during her visit, as time was running out. The dragon continued, informing her that the young dragons would rush to their demise if she didn't act, reminding her of her duty as the Dragon King. Hesti softly replied that she understood but asked for just one more day. The next morning, Daichi was delighted to see Hesti again and asked if she came to visit. He told her to wait a moment as he was picking apples. After a short while, Daichi returned, thanking her for waiting and explaining he had left the rest of the work to the golems. Hesti then presented Daichi with a Dragon King's scepter and cloak as gifts. Daichi put them on and found them exceptionally comfortable and simply designed. Hesti informed him that the scepter he held was a magical artifact. Daichi, who usually relied on his imagination for magic, wondered if he really needed it. Hesti playfully suggested he could use it to fight monsters, but then clarified it was a joke. She explained that while imagining magic was useful, it wasn't always convenient and could be draining. She advised Daichi to create a shortcut for his magic, suggesting he choose a word to use when casting spells to lessen the burden. Hesti demonstrated, asking Daichi if it seemed simple. She explained that by defining the word as he wished, it would reduce the magical energy consumed. Daichi likened it to setting up a keyboard shortcut and successfully replicated what Hesti showed him. He found the process efficient, not feeling tired or depleted even after creating a golem. Hesti watched Daichi casually name things, prompting him to ask if something was wrong. She explained that it was her first time seeing someone use magic so freely, as most people would need to follow a list of spells. Daichi laughed, finding the method brilliant. At that moment, Sakura came out from the house, inviting them to take a break with some snacks and drinks. Hesti enjoyed the delicious pastries so much that she ended up with crumbs all over her mouth. After she finished eating, Daichi mentioned he would continue his training and told Hesti she could leave if she wanted to. Unlike previous times, Hesti chose to stay and watch Daichi practice. As the sky darkened, Daichi expressed concern, asking if she could get home safely in the dark. Hesti reassured him that her home was nearby. Before leaving, she looked around wistfully, smiling and saying they had a great time together, but that time had come to an end, and bid him goodbye. Daichi was puzzled by her goodbye, sensing an underlying finality in her words. That night, after Hesti left Daichi's house, the elder dragon informed the other dragons of the upcoming event. He announced that the Valley of Dragons should gather because the next morning, the White Flame Dragon King, Hesti, would battle. All the dragons in the tribe were excited to witness the Dragon King's fight. Hesti, observing the jubilant dragons, wondered why she had to rule over such a foolish bunch, questioning her fate. The elder dragon beside her, who had lived for nearly a century, lamented the situation but urged Hesti to prepare for the next day's battle. Hesti realized her responsibility towards her kin and decided to help them. The elder dragon apologized for the predicament but insisted she get ready. The next morning, the young dragons were ecstatic, confident in their imminent victory against Daichi. They underestimated him, thinking he was just an ordinary human. Hesti, transforming into her dragon form on a high rock, felt the magic coursing through her body for the first time in a long while. As she soared into the sky, she thought fondly of Daichi and Sakura's kindness, grateful for teaching her about the world and magic. She had never before had to use her full strength against an opponent and was eager to see how she would fare as the Dragon King, even though it meant she might never return to this place again. Daichi, standing on the highest floor of his tower, admired the breathtaking view around him, wondering if the distant area was the Dragon Valley Hesti had mentioned. It looked like nothing more than rough stones from this distance. He commented to Sakura how convenient their transformed house was, offering a panoramic view from their elevated position. Sakura happily agreed, pleased to spend the morning in such a beautiful spot. Daichi was also glad about the magical technique Hesti had taught him, which prevented him from getting exhausted. This allowed him to wake up early and enjoy the scenery. Daichi, however, couldn't help but worry about Hesti. He remembered her saying that she had a great time, but now it was over, and she said goodbye. Suddenly, Daichi spotted something alarming in the distance, a swarm of dragons approaching, led by a giant white dragon. Sakura observed the dragons and noted that she didn't sense any anger or hostility from the large white dragon. However, she suggested they move downstairs due to the strong winds the dragon's approach would generate. As they reached the ground floor, the dragons arrived. Daichi alerted Sakura that they were here. The leading dragon, without a word, breathed fire onto their house. Daichi panicked, seeing his house ablaze, worried for Sakura's safety. He rushed to her side, asking if she was okay. Sakura reassured him that only the wall was slightly burnt, and she was fine. Hesti, now in her dragon form, announced that she was the leader of these dragons and demanded a fight or threatened to burn everything down. Daichi, incensed by the threat to his home, boldly accepted the challenge, vowing to protect his house at all costs. He grabbed Sakura's hand and asked her to fully synchronize with him, planning to use the magic key. He was now capable of combining over 100 golems and could observe from within them while synchronized with Sakura, ready to defend their home against the dragon invasion. Amidst the tense situation, Daichi looked at Sakura and humorously remarked that his newly created golem, although over 10 meters tall, still paled in comparison to the original ones. He estimated the leading white dragon to be about 30 meters tall. With their aerial advantage and imposing size, the dragons certainly posed a significant threat. Sakura, standing behind him, reassured him that she would use her magic to protect the house, urging him to focus all his energy on the fight. Daichi, filled with determination, yelled at the approaching dragons, declaring the place as his home, a place of happiness that he wouldn't allow them to destroy. Meanwhile, in the kingdom of Prussia, a soldier burst into a meeting room with urgent news. He reported that the White Flame Dragon King was heading towards the demon forest, leading a massive swarm of dragons. The city was in imminent danger of falling if the dragons indeed reached their destination. The Kobolo tribe also noticed the impending threat. The Wolf Clan's chieftain quickly led his people, along with food supplies, away from danger. This prompted a discussion in the meeting room about evacuating the capital. Panic ensued as people questioned where they could possibly go to be safe from the dragon horde. The room was filled with fear and confusion, with some people breaking down in tears, fearing their doom was near. Diana, unable to tolerate the chaos any longer, stepped forward and loudly called for calm. She urged everyone to focus on the issue at hand rather than succumbing to panic. She calmly asked the messenger for more details about the number of dragons. He fearfully estimated at least 50, with the most recent information indicating that a portion of the forest had already been burned to ashes. Diana contemplated the situation, realizing it involved the legendary White Flame Dragon King, a mythical creature rumored to have destroyed an entire nation long ago. She questioned why the dragon, believed to be in a long hibernation, had suddenly reappeared. Diana's questions echoed the room's growing apprehension about facing such a formidable and ancient force. Diana approached the Knight Commander, urging him to evacuate the residence while there was still time. The commander expressed his concern, saying he had already requested reinforcements, but it would take at least a day for them to arrive. With no other options, Diana declared she would go to the battlefield herself. Without waiting for a response, she successfully teleported to the site of the conflict. Upon arrival, Diana looked around for the dragon but was caught off guard by a sudden blaze from above. Thankfully, one of Daichi's golems, controlled by him, intervened just in time to shield her. Diana, amazed that the golem could block the fire, was unsure of its nature. Daichi, recognizing her, questioned why Princess Diana was there at such a critical moment. Diana, realizing the voice belonged to Daichi, was surprised to see him controlling the golem. Daichi, furious, turned his attention back to the dragon that had just scorched his garden and even damaged the arm of his armor. He vowed not to let the dragon cause any more destruction. Fortunately, he had previously used the empty rooms to store golems, and now hoped this would aid in their defense. Daichi commanded all the golems to assemble, declaring it was time for their counterattack against the White Flame Dragon King. He told Sakura to disregard the dragon's height advantage and then checked on her well-being. She confirmed that despite some minor burns around them, she was unharmed. Daichi, relieved, instructed her to activate the countermeasure. After Sakura locked onto the target, Daichi ordered the anti-air traps to fire. Hesti, flying above, dodged the incoming projectiles, thinking she only needed to avoid them. However, she was caught off guard when they split upon approaching their target. She narrowly escaped, only to unleash another fiery breath in response. Daichi shouted in anger, questioning if she intended to burn everything down. He challenged the dragon to come down and fight on the ground instead of just circling in the sky. As Daichi's shield shattered under the dragon's attack, he grew increasingly frustrated. The shield, magically reinforced by him, should not have broken so easily. The younger dragons around them cheered, believing their leader was close to victory, thinking it was an easy battle. Hesti, determined to end the fight, declared herself as the Dragon King, showcasing her true power. Daichi, realizing the severity of the situation, warned Sakura that Hesti was preparing to unleash another fiery attack, potentially devastating everything around them. He shouted defiantly at the dragon, refusing to let his home be destroyed any further. He then urged Sakura to use whatever they had left in their arsenal for a final counterattack. In response to Daichi's command, all remaining apple trees in the garden quickly merged into a massive apple tree. It was a formidable entity, formed from countless smaller trees, and it immediately engaged Hesti, intercepting her fiery assault. Daichi, watching from below, saw the giant tree formed from the amalgamation of many apple trees fighting against the White Flame Dragon King. However, to his dismay, even this massive tree began to burn under the dragon's intense fire. Urging Sakura to channel more magic into the tree, the situation suddenly reversed as the tree pierced through Hesti's magical assault. Daichi cheered, seeing the giant dragon gradually coming under control. He remembered the scepter Hesti had given him and realized the dragon was still defiant, screaming that it would not be defeated. Feeling the dragon's persistent nuisance, Daichi attempted to use his own power to end the battle, but his remaining strength was too weak to match the dragon's. He acknowledged the Dragon King's formidable resilience but was determined to show the full might of his armor, composed of 100 apple trees. This final show of strength would be a decisive move in the battle, harnessing the collective power of the apple trees. And there's another reason, the magic absorbed by the armor actually emanates from your house. Daichi commands the armor to quickly spread its branches into every nook and cranny of the dragon. Then he orders the armor to unleash its power and explode, defeating the self-proclaimed leader of the dragon. Daichi smiles triumphantly, proud of his victory over the beast. Sakura praises her master, always so brilliant and capable. Diana, watching from a distance, can't understand why she's crying. She refuses to believe that the legendary white dragon has been defeated, a feat never accomplished before, now unfolding before her eyes. Diana, the witch, has spent her life training to become powerful. She summoned Daichi to enhance her own strength and to assist the nation. A house emerges in a dense forest, and she can't deny what he has done for her country. Diana is grateful, yet wonders if she would have become stronger without his presence. Watching Daichi's power, she admires his immense skill. Daichi, looking around at the chaos, complains about the mess. Even his house has been partially burnt. Sakura asks if he wants to continue planting apples. Daichi agrees, saying they need to be prepared for defense, although it seems unlikely that they will be attacked again. Seeing the dragons scatter in panic, Daichi feels relieved that they're fleeing, as he's out of magical energy for further combat. He approaches the dragon who claimed to be the Dragon King, lying on the ground, begging for a swift end. Daichi doesn't intend to kill it, wouldn't that make his yard even messier? He decides to use magic to shrink it. To his astonishment, the face of the being before him is strikingly familiar. Daichi exclaims in shock, asking if that is Hesti. Hesti, in a soft voice, confirms she is the White Fire Dragon King, or rather the old Dragon King at this moment. Daichi holds his forehead, having thought she was more open-minded than the other dragons. And she even managed to withstand his attacks. Hesti doesn't respond to him, lying back on the ground. She urges Daichi to just kill her now as he intended, and end the battle here. Daichi calmly sits beside her and asks why he should kill her. He's also very curious as to why Hesti attacked him in the first place at their initial meeting spot. Daichi stands, looking at Hesti, urging her to reveal the reason to both of them. If they try to resolve the issue, there's no reason for her to die. After pondering for a while, Hesti explains she had to fight to show the other dragons. To show that Daichi is the strongest, she needed to make it clear to those young dragons. Daichi realizes she was fighting for her tribe. He asks her if her goal is now achieved. She responds that it is. They would have died if they had tried to fight him. However, to ensure her point is made, Hesti urges Daichi to take her head. To show those foolish dragons that they cannot defeat Daichi. Daichi stands up and hits Hesti hard on the head. He seriously says this is her punishment. Hesti is so hurt that her eyes keep spinning. Daichi wants her to learn a lesson because it won't stick if she isn't hit hard. Suddenly, Daichi's serious expression turns into a loud laugh, saying he will of course forgive her. Daichi says he can't help her, she has her own reasons. So, he just needs to return all the troubles she caused. Hesti looks at him confused, saying this isn't the dragon's way. Daichi ignores her words, just telling Hesti to speak to him when she needs help. They will have plenty of opportunities to talk about that. Hesti asks what kind of help he means, she doesn't understand. Daichi patiently sits down to explain. He means she should tell him whenever she has a problem. It's normal for neighbors to rely on each other, especially when they are close friends. It's the same as when Daichi has a problem, he would also ask for Hesti's help. Daichi smiles at her and continues that he's never had a neighbor before, so it's not a frequent occurrence for him. Daichi looks around, wanting to dispel the awkward atmosphere. He says it seems the garden has become quite a mess, and he thinks everyone needs to clean it up together. Hesti, thinking more lightly, smiles and agrees to clean up together. Sakura looks at them and asks if she should make some tea for them. Daichi has no objection, and Hesti happily agrees, feeling thirsty after all the fire breathing. The story then flashes back to a part of Sakura's memory from 50 years ago. At that time, Daichi's grandfather had chosen the location to build their current house. He happily took his son and daughter-in-law to the newly built house and announced they would live together there. As soon as they entered the house, Daichi's grandfather asked Daichi's father to follow him for a tour. He pointed to the central pillar of the house made of sakura wood, saying this was the reason he built the house here. Sakura's vague memories also began from this moment. Things became clearer when Daichi was born. This was also the first time she became aware of everything. By some predestined affinity, both Sakura and Daichi were of the same age. As Daichi grew up in the house, so did Sakura. She vividly remembers once when Daichi ran up to the sakura tree, looking intently at it. At that moment, she excitedly asked if he had just seen her. Right then, his mother came in, calling him to leave quickly. Daichi, hearing his mother's call, cheerfully ran off, forgetting the recent event. But after that, for several days, Sakura saw no sign of him returning, and his family was also absent from the house. Sakura sat waiting, wondering why Daichi hadn't returned and where everyone had gone. She experienced feelings of loneliness and fear over those days. With no one at home, the house gradually lost its purpose of existence. She realized she was fading away, and even if she cried for help, no one would come. In her moment of utter despair, Daichi suddenly opened the big door and ran into the house, overjoyed to be back. The moment Sakura saw him enter, she knew she had been saved. His grandfather followed behind, incessantly complaining about how a storm had delayed their flight. The old man himself had greatly missed this house. Sakura, moved by the sight of the grandfather and grandson, thought she deserved to stay in this place. Since then, Sakura had been by Daichi's side through every journey, until the present moment when they had ventured into a new world. Back in the present, the three of them spent an entire evening cleaning and repairing the house and garden. Hesti noticed that the staff she gifted Daichi was broken. Daichi, catching her gaze, admits he broke it during the battle. Hesti tells him she put a lot of effort into making it, claiming it couldn't be broken even if struck with a hammer. Daichi is surprised, realizing Hesti also has this talent. Hesti mentions she even has a weapon-making certification. It's an easy way to make money while traveling, and she had even named this skill of hers. Daichi commends her on her extensive experience. After some thought, Hesti asks Daichi if he needs additional staff. He looks at her, puzzled. Hesti continues, asking if Daichi can't use the universal key anymore and might soon face trouble without being able to create other golems. Hesti holds the staff, asserting it can still be repaired. She can fix it in a day, and even add material from her tail. Daichi, amazed, asks if that's okay, given it's part of her body. Hesti assures him that although it's as valuable as a dragon's claw, it regrows quickly over time. She looks at him and adds, since he said about helping neighbors, she will do her best to help. Daichi thanks her, admitting he couldn't have remade it himself. But if he had the materials, perhaps he wouldn't need her help. Nevertheless, he thanks her for the assistance and tells her to let him know if she needs anything. Hesti, in a friendly tone, says she currently has nowhere to live. Daichi, confused, asks about the dragon village. Hesti explains that since she was defeated by him, she lost her title as the Dragon King, and those dragons only obey the strongest. Daichi is surprised to learn that the dragons are such. Currently, if Hesti were to return, she would be regarded as dead by them. Daichi silently thinks that this is truly harsh. Hesti, with a friendly demeanor, informs them that if Daichi doesn't let her stay, she can only camp somewhere. But there would be dangers that would prevent her from sleeping. Daichi sincerely says he doesn't think there's anything out there that can defeat her. Of course, it's not about her being afraid, she had destroyed the surrounding area and doesn't want that to continue. Daichi realizes that Hesti herself is the danger to everything around. Hesti looks at them once more, asking if there's a place to stay they could recommend for her. This is a difficult question for Daichi as he doesn't understand much about living in the city. Daichi turns to Sakura, asking how she feels about it. Sakura smiles happily, asking if he means for Hesti to live with them, thinking it would be wonderful. Besides, Sakura, being Daichi's house, will follow his decision. Daichi worries if her staying at their house would cause any issues with the magical power there. Sakura says she believes Hesti is strong enough not to be affected by the magic. Hearing this, Daichi extends his hand to her, declaring that from now on they will live together here. Hesti looks at them shyly, wondering if it's okay for her to stay. Daichi laughs heartily. Of course, both the master and the house have agreed to let her stay here. Daichi points to a house behind his, saying she can live independently there. Hesti, seeing the house, happily thanks them. Daichi is also delighted to have her as a neighbor. As they are engrossed in conversation, Princess Diana appears. She apologizes to everyone and then asks Daichi if he has some free time. Diana looks at the princess who just arrived, her again. Diana says she owes him a great favor and would like him to accompany her into the city. Diana's sudden invitation to the city perplexes Daichi. She explains that they want to officially recognize his victory over the White Dragon King. Daichi guesses it's a special event, which is why Diana is dressed so splendidly today. Diana clarifies that being of royal blood, she is obliged to dress lavishly. Diana doesn't understand why she is being praised, feeling she hasn't done anything worthy of acclaim. She simply states it's because Daichi is a hero. His battle might have been witnessed from the city, and people see him as their savior. Daichi didn't think people would perceive him in such a way, as he was just trying to protect his home. Diana tells him that it's because of his actions that the city's people didn't have to fight. That's why they want to show their gratitude to Daichi. Honestly, he doesn't want to go to the city. It's late, and he's just had a tiring day. Diana persists, saying his presence in the city with the little magic power he has left would be better for the people. Although Daichi's magic power is still quite strong after the battle, it's acceptable. Diana pleads with him to come to the city, assuring it won't take much time. If Daichi were to visit the city in his normal state, it would surely cause a crisis. As a princess, she fears unwanted incidents might occur. Daichi informs Sakura that he will make a quick trip to the city, promising to return soon. Diana's eyes sparkle with gratitude, confident that he would agree. Diana, ignoring her own concerns, turns to Hesti, asking if she wants to come along. Hesti agrees, needing to buy some items to repair her staff. Only then does Diana notice Hesti's small, yet powerful presence. She wonders if Hesti is a child. Daichi, concealing the truth, says she just lives nearby and is not his child. Daichi bids farewell to Sakura, and the three set off together. As they travel, Diana says they'll arrive soon as she can teleport all three of them. Daichi, intrigued, asks if it's instant teleportation magic. Diana proudly boasts about her special ability. In the kingdom of Prussia, upon arrival, Daichi sees a multitude waiting below. As he appears, everyone cheers for their savior, the hero is here. Daichi looks down, asking Diana who those people are. She informs him that they are nobles and high-level adventurers, there to welcome him. Before, when the Dragon King was only a few kilometers away, they had resigned themselves to death. Daichi thinks to himself that the dragon is actually right in front of everyone. Hesti, finding it boring, says she will go get her materials. Diana worries if it's really okay to let a child go alone, especially since it's getting dark, even with the nation's security. Daichi chuckles, thinking it's more likely that the city would be in danger because of Hesti. Diana sees the right moment and leads Daichi to the ceremony. She explains everything happened so quickly, so they'll just have a small ceremony. After it's completed, they have prepared a reward for Daichi. Diana brings it to him, asking him to accept it as their way of showing gratitude. Holding the reward, Daichi honestly says he didn't do this for everyone. But not accepting it now might seem rude. Holding the reward, he shows no interest in what it is and quickly folds the paper. Diana, seeing him put away the reward, says there's a banquet in his honor, asking if he would please join them. Below, the crowd starts cheering again, begging to see their savior and hear his story. Daichi feels the people here are becoming more troublesome and is tired of it. He bluntly apologizes, saying he's not good at these things and thinks he should go home now. Diana is shocked, her eyes widening. She asks what he just said, wondering if he doesn't want to join a royal banquet. Okudo, the head of the knights, steps forward, saying they have the kingdom's best chefs present. Hearing this, Daichi thinks of Sakura diligently cooking at home, waiting for him and Hesti to return. Daichi tells the head of the knights that he might be mistaken. He already has the best cook at home, and he thinks their dinner is probably ready by now. Diana, seeing Daichi's firm resolve, guesses nothing will keep him here. If he wants to go home, she offers to take him back. Daichi declines, saying everything will be fine, he'll walk home. Diana is surprised by his refusal, insisting it's a long way and thinking they could go back together. At this moment, Daichi sees Hesti walking in with a large bag, asking if she's back. Hesti, holding the bag, says she's found all the ingredients to remake their staff. Daichi, hearing this, suggests it's time to go home. He asks Hesti if it's okay to walk back, but without a word, she transforms into a large dragon, offering to carry him on her back instead of walking. The people in the hall scream in fear at the sight of the dragon. Diana, observing from above, is shocked that the white dragon king obeys Daichi. Daichi, feeling awkward, realizes he forgot to warn Hesti earlier. Diana, alarmed, asks if he intends to destroy the city. Daichi urges everyone to calm down, assuring that he and Hesti won't harm the city. Hesti echoes that, of course, she will listen to Daichi. Diana feels relieved, saying it's good to hear that. Daichi signals that he will leave soon. Diana, in the moment he's about to leave, rushes to stop him, asking him to wait. With courage, she says she has represented the city, but wonders if Daichi has any personal feelings for her. Daichi, awkwardly, says he guesses she's a princess, but he doesn't remember helping her or anyone specifically, he was just protecting his home. Daichi smiles at Diana, telling her to keep her feelings until he does something truly worthy. Daichi, without a hint of reluctance, looked at everyone and informed Hesti that he was about to climb onto her dragon form. She nonchalantly replied that there was no problem. Daichi told her he had been very worried when she began her transformation, but fortunately, her current form was much smaller than before, not causing any disturbance to those around. She explained that her magic had not fully recovered, which is why she had compressed her body to maintain the density of her magic. Hesti, concerned for his safety, reminded him to put on the scales before she flew into the sky. Before leaving, Daichi looked back at everyone below and promised to meet them again next time. Even after Daichi and his dragon had departed, everyone was still in a daze. They questioned each other if a dragon had really just appeared, albeit briefly. It was only later that they accepted the fact that their hero had just left. On the way back, Daichi continually conversed with Hesti. He was surprised that she could fly with him in such a densely populated city. Hesti informed him that she couldn't transform into a dragon many times unless she wanted to. The sight of a dragon flying through the city, with light emitting from Hesti, contrasted starkly against the dark night sky. Many people were attracted by the light, looking up to see a dragon swiftly crossing the night sky. Some, disbelieving, blamed the alcohol for their visions. However, they couldn't deny that the white dragon had emerged from the castle and returned to the forest. At the same time, a mysterious girl, also attracted by the light, quickly recognized her sister and sensed that things were about to get even more interesting. This event sparked a rumor that a white dragon lived in Prussia, a rumor that even spread to neighboring countries. During dinner with Sakura, she wanted to ask for his opinion on a few things. Sakura expressed her desire to hear Daichi's comments about the house. Daichi, skeptical about what he just heard, asked if she meant for him to comment on the house she created. Sakura revealed the truth that when Hesti attacked, she felt the current form of her house was unsuitable. Indeed, in that situation, it wasn't good at all, and she might have lost her life if the house was affected. Daichi asked what they should do then, mentioning that he had previously thought about burying it. Sakura calmly suggested that if he used her body in all her magical power, perhaps it would be possible. She meant that he could synchronize with her and then remodel the house like creating a golem. Sakura believed that Daichi should understand how they synchronize. Daichi said he understood, but this time it was a case of the two working on it externally. They stood looking at their building for a while, then started making changes. After completing the synchronization, the programming system showed them the complete model of the house. Sakura guided Daichi, who had to use his magic and intuition to move it. Daichi whispered, imagining the house as he used his magic. He decided to try a small experiment first, by shifting one floor of the building in a different direction. Sakura exclaimed loudly that it was really moving. She praised Daichi for doing well. Daichi quickly grasped the method, just as they had hoped. Embarrassed, Daichi said she was praising him too much, as he only needed to think near the house to move it easily. It wasn't difficult at all, but he was still worried the house might collapse. Sakura reassured him that they had synchronized their magic to reinforce the walls, so there was no risk of that happening. The important thing now was for him to get accustomed to using it. After spending 10 minutes observing the transformed house, Daichi expressed his amazement at the magic's capabilities. It allowed him to change the house's shape as if playing a construction game with bricks. Additionally, as long as the mass remained constant, the shape of the house could be altered. Daichi, smiling at Sakura, said he had figured out how to move it and would now change its shape as desired. He wanted the house to be more stable as its current form seemed weak. The garden and apple field were quite large, so he could afford to expand the house to some extent. Eventually, for absolute safety, the house was transformed into a pyramid shape. As usual, the top contained the living room, dining room, and kitchen. Looking back at the house he had just created, which resembled a pyramid-shaped tomb underground, Daichi wondered if he had made any mistake. Sakura laughed and said this was the best answer for safety. Now, even if Hesti attacked it directly, it would leave no trace. While Daichi and Sakura were outside reshaping the house, Hesti was inside her small house, diligently working as a blacksmith. Seeing the newly completed wand as dawn broke, Hesti was overjoyed. As the day broke, Daichi rushed outside to observe their house. He remarked that, as he thought, the shape of the house was not right. Sakura mentioned that the old shape was stored in his memory. Sakura, hearing their voices, came out and looked at the house, surprised. She exclaimed that Daichi was using magic in a peculiar way again. Hesti thought she had felt a change in magical energy since yesterday but didn't expect them to use it in this way. Normally, a person would collapse if they used this kind of magical energy even once. After the conversation ended, Hesti proudly presented the newly made wand to Daichi. She said it would guide Daichi in the right direction. A newly crafted wand, she assured, would be easier to use. Holding it in his hand, Daichi felt it was wonderful, realizing it was thicker and much sturdier than the old one. Hesti explained that she had carefully selected the materials and isolated herself to craft the wand. She added that Daichi could use the magic key to change the shape of the house more easily. Sakura, after pondering for a while, suggested that it might be even more successful if she synchronized with him. And once the shape was newly created, it could be changed immediately. Daichi understood and said he would try from now on. First, he asked Sakura to quickly synchronize with him to return the house to its original shape. With the magic key, an important keyword was needed. All three were surprised to see the house transform instantly. Hesti remarked that achieving this in the first attempt was astounding. Daichi, delighted, looked at the house, knowing he could easily transform it into a pyramid. Thanks to the wand, he no longer felt exhausted. It was quite energy efficient. Somehow, Daichi became extremely excited and continued to transform the house into various strange shapes, even capable of creating a spaceship. Realizing he had gone too far upon seeing the bizarrely shaped house, Daichi apologized to Sakura. She smiled brightly and told him not to worry, as they could change the shape anytime. Moreover, she praised Daichi for being skilled in transforming the house's shape in such a short time. Sakura realized that at this rate, Daichi could use magic without needing to synchronize. She assured Daichi that if the house was damaged again, she would fix it, so he should feel free to creatively shape the house as he wished. In the following days, Daichi focused on creating a strong golem team. Diana unexpectedly appeared at his house, surprised to find him in the middle of his work. Daichi told her he didn't mind her visit and was pleased that Diana had managed to control her fear upon encountering a large number of golems. Diana assured him there was no need to worry, as she had prepared herself. She expressed pride in her growth over the past period. Daichi, puzzled, asked why she was proud of that. Today, Diana had come to grant a title to his land in the city. It took a long time to prepare the paperwork, which is why Diana took a while to arrive. After explaining her purpose, Diana shifted the topic to the nearby golems, questioning why they looked so intimidating. She even felt a tremendous pressure just by looking at them. Daichi thought to himself that their fearsome appearance was indeed due to the technology of the magic key. Diana, familiar with this magic, acknowledged its utility. Even a great sorceress like her could only manage 1 or 2 clusters at most. Daichi calmly explained that his golems were also created using the magic key. Hearing this, Diana wanted to lie down on the ground, feeling once again surpassed by him. Daichi was puzzled by Diana's behavior, who seemed extremely excited upon arrival but then quickly became disheartened. He could only comment on how dispiriting her life seemed. When Diana calmed down, she asked Daichi how he learned it. Daichi mentioned it wasn't self-taught, a young girl passing by had taught him. Diana, curious, expressed her desire to meet this girl. Just then, Hesti came out of the small house. Diana, after a moment of thought, asked if Hesti was the black-clad sorceress. Hesti sadly confirmed that she hadn't heard that name in a long time. Diana struggled to accept that the legendary sorceress was just an alias for the White Fire Dragon King. Decades ago, an anonymous black-clad sorceress appeared at the Prussia Magic Association, quickly attaining the highest rank within a few short days before disappearing. Daichi, finding it hard to believe, asked if Hesti really was the legendary sorceress. Hesti calmly stated that if he thought she was a legend, she's nothing now. Daichi was the one who had surpassed the ordinary. Diana added that they had no way to measure Daichi's strength, so they couldn't assign him an appropriate rank. Daichi noticed the change in Diana's fearful expression, wondering why everything had suddenly taken such a turn. Diana explained that she had encountered someone very powerful, which helped her get accustomed to such presences. Before leaving, she expressed her pride in meeting Daichi and Sakura, vowing to work hard to become as strong as them. Daichi laughed heartily, saying he and Sakura were used to her presence, and she was welcome anytime. Upon returning, Diana focused on her duties. Even as a princess, she had paperwork to do. There was a lot to handle, but at least she no longer needed to work through the night. Thanks to Daichi, the people's harvest was more bountiful than ever before. The Knight Commander, Okudo, came with news about emergency forces from the central city. Diana appreciated their help, even though it was not necessary. Okudo reported that most adventurers had returned, but a few lingered in search of treasure. Diana guessed they didn't want to return empty-handed, and Okudo agreed they didn't want to waste a week without gaining anything. Diana suddenly asked if he had warned them to stay away from Daichi's area. Okudo had indeed warned them but wouldn't be surprised if they ignored his advice. However, they both were sure Daichi wouldn't face any trouble from them, recognizing his strength and tact. Diana thought Daichi wouldn't harm them, knowing his preference for peace, and they planned to apologize to him if any disturbance occurred. Okudo had another matter to discuss with the princess. He had information about a group from the city, the Saso, who wanted to thoroughly investigate Daichi's repulsion of the dragon. Okudo heard that among them were individuals capable of detecting powerful magic. He suspected they were targeting something specific and was certain that news about Daichi had reached them. Diana, agitated, declared that if they dared to attack Daichi's home, she was ready to use her magic against them if necessary. The group of adventurers, as predicted, ignored Okudo's warnings and decided to venture into Daichi's land on their own. The leader of the group laughed loudly, reveling in the idea of entering the area in the early morning. Another member complimented the leader, noting that monsters wouldn't appear at this time, and they would quickly reach their destination. As they neared the land of Daichi, the leader of the impostors smiled mysteriously, urging the others to quickly prepare for looting the treasures. They all firmly believed that defeating Daichi would be an easy feat. Filled with excitement, the adventurers charged towards Daichi's house, issuing an order to attack together. However, to their shock, they were struck by a powerful magical force before they could even get close to the house, leaving them breathless. The leading adventurer, in disbelief, exclaimed that it was impossible for someone to be that powerful. He had thought the task would be as easy as he had imagined. Another pointed towards a small house nearby, suggesting they regroup there to gather their strength. But before they could step inside, Hesty emerged from the house. Hesty, with a look of confusion, questioned the identity of these people. The intruders were even more surprised than the little girl, constantly questioning why a child would be in such a place. Without an answer from them, Hesty deduced these people were intruders. Determined to protect the area, she decided to take action to stop them. The group observed Hesty, oblivious to the immense magical power radiating from her. Hesty calmly informed them that this was private property, and they could not intrude with weapons. As her magic took effect, the impostors found themselves immobilized. Hesty gently commanded them to be blown away, and the group was swiftly propelled away. The more perceptive leader realized that the girl was casting a spell. After understanding the situation, he quickly cautioned his companions, recognizing they were facing a high-level sorcerer. Hesty, observing the perplexed group, contemplated whether the effort to deal with them was too much, pondering if she should just incinerate them. The intruders quickly realized that the attack had ceased, with the leader reminding his comrades to stay vigilant. Hesty paused her actions upon noticing a golem slowly advancing towards the intruders. They also quickly noticed the massive golem. The leader screamed in fear, exclaiming that he had never seen such a bizarre golem. Hesty, standing behind them, watched the golem with interest, surprised that it could operate on its own. She decided to sit back and enjoy the show, curious to see how the golem would deal with them. Despite their fear, the group tried to reassure each other that it was just a wooden golem and they could handle it. But before they could finish their thought, several of them were unexpectedly attacked by the wooden golem, much to the leader's astonishment. Inside Daichi's house, having just woken up, Daichi heard the screams outside. The group outside was panicking, unsure of what had just happened, but they found themselves trapped. Daichi, unusually calm today, asked Sakura if their garden seemed a bit noisy this morning. Sakura informed him that a gang of robbers had arrived early in the day. Unsure of how he wanted to deal with them, she had sent the golem. As she spoke, Sakura went to get a wand to hand to Daichi. Daichi mentioned that he had never been attacked by humans except for Diana and now had no idea what the purpose of this group's visit was. Daichi reached out his hand, asking Sakura if she was ready to synchronize. He wanted to understand the purpose of their visit. Outside the house, the adventurers felt the ground beneath them shaking continuously. Soon after, more than 20 wooden golems with terrifying shapes appeared, surrounding the impostors. Without any warning, all the intruders fainted. Inside the house, Sakura observed and told Daichi that it seemed they had all fainted. Daichi hadn't used any traps before because he wanted to avoid them fainting, he preferred to talk to them. Sakura, unconcerned about the matter, cheerfully asked if he was ready for breakfast. Daichi agreed, noting that they would wake up after he had finished eating. Outside, Hesty looked at the people lying unconscious on the ground, her curiosity piqued. She picked up a dry twig and started poking the head of a bald man in the group. Waiting for the group to awaken, Daichi demanded they explain everything to him. Seeing the adventurer before him nearly fainting, he told him not to pass out as he still had questions. The man, frightened, begged for mercy, explaining that his magic resistance was low near Daichi, making it hard for him to breathe. Daichi then asked the strongest person there to explain. Eventually, he learned that the group was a band of adventurers from the central city, summoned to hunt a dragon and unwilling to return empty-handed. Daichi inquired why they chose to come here. The leader honestly replied they were instructed by their headquarters. A black-haired woman had sent them, claiming that there were many treasures here. Daichi, having never heard of any treasures in the area, looked at them puzzled. The leader nervously admitted that there were only a few magic or deposits, nothing more. They hadn't touched them and hadn't expected to find anyone living here. Daichi, easily deceived, thought they didn't seem like liars. It appeared they weren't targeting him. He said he understood their story but didn't appreciate them causing a disturbance. Daichi expressed that he'd be happier if they just left quietly since they hadn't damaged anything. The leader skeptically asked if Daichi would impale them on spears. Daichi smiled, replying only if they didn't attack his home again. And when they returned, they should inform the black-haired woman that there were no treasures here. The group bowed in thanks and quickly departed. Daichi was still pondering the black-haired woman the adventurers mentioned. He was utterly baffled as to why she would want to attack his home. He didn't know what they wanted, but guessed the recent imposters had been manipulated. However, Daichi felt somewhat relieved that his house was finally quiet again. He thought about the so-called central city, disliking being uninformed about it. Daichi called Hesti over and asked if she could tell him more about the central city. Hesti agreed but pointed out that they had a visitor. Daichi looked in the direction she indicated and saw an old dragon appearing. He skeptically asked if it was an ancient dragon, wondering if it had come for Hesti. Hesti knew the dragon but was quite sure it had come for Daichi. Daichi looked up at the old dragon, puzzled about what it wanted from him. The old dragon looked down and apologized for the intrusion, asking if he could land to talk more comfortably. He respectfully addressed Daichi as the former and current king of their kind. The adventurers, who hadn't gone far, were startled to see a dragon landing. The leader lamented their bad luck, realizing they had no choice but to quickly flee the forest. Once on the ground, the old dragon thanked Daichi for allowing him to land. Daichi conversed with him in the dragon language, thinking it would be rude not to. The old dragon then transformed into an elderly human. He explained that this form would facilitate easier communication with Daichi. Genryu asked if Daichi understood him. Daichi smiled, assuring he did. Genryu was concerned since he wasn't very skilled at transforming into a human. Daichi curiously asked Hesti if all dragons could transform into humans. Hesti informed him that dragons proficient in magic could learn to do so after they turn 100, though not all succeed. Daichi understood that it wasn't a common ability. Hesti then revealed that very old dragons might lose their wisdom and become simple dragons. But there was no need to worry, as if they became dangerous, other dragons would take care of them. Some may survive these situations, but most either slowly die or are killed by other creatures. Hearing this, Daichi felt the dragon society was harsh, but he wanted to know why the elder had come. The elder explained he came to meet the new king. Since he could transform into a human and was the smallest in size, he was chosen as the representative. Daichi was pleased to meet Genryu, who expressed his honor in making Daichi's acquaintance. However, Genryu pointed out that others were waiting nearby. Following his direction, Daichi saw numerous dragons who had arrived. The dragons were enthusiastically discussing how remarkable it was that Daichi, a human, could speak the language of dragons. They were impressed with his effort. Daichi thought to himself that he didn't intentionally learn it, he had accidentally eaten an apple that enabled him to understand dragon speech. Genryu then bowed and declared that from this moment, the dragons were pledged to Daichi's loyalty. Daichi acknowledged this but requested that they keep their distance from the city in the future. The last time the dragons had visited, the people there were terrified. The elder promised to abide by Daichi's wishes and asked him to call upon the dragons if he ever needed their strength. Daichi smiled, uncertain if such a time would come. Genryu commented on their fortune to have a king who was both powerful and kind-hearted. He also expressed gratitude that Daichi hadn't harmed their beloved Hesti. That alone was enough for their unwavering loyalty to Daichi. It seemed that Hesti was greatly cherished by the dragons. She had once said they didn't need her, but it appeared she had underestimated their affection. Even among dragons, there were good individuals like Genryu. Daichi was glad that the situation was resolved peacefully. The elder then mentioned another matter he needed to discuss with Hesti. He told her that the Black Dragon King was on the move, and he could sense its unique magical power. Daichi asked if it was dangerous. Hesti replied that it was mostly harmless. She asked the elder to convey her regards if he met them. The next day, while Daichi was tending to his apple trees, Hesti came to see him. She inquired if he had some free time, needing to talk to him about the central city mentioned by the adventurers. She produced a different map from before. Daichi, curious, asked how many maps she had. Hesti explained that she had traveled the world and had many maps, having prepared several backups because transforming into a dragon often destroyed them. She then began to point inside the map, explaining that to the south of the magical forest lay the central city, built on a plain. Daichi was surprised to learn that the central city was surrounded by the territories of the Black Dragon King, Forest Wolves, Ogre tribes, Goblin tribes, and even ORC tribes. He wondered why a city would be built in such a surrounded location. Hesti explained that it was because of a dungeon at the center that produced magical ore. Eventually, everyone gathered there to equip themselves and venture into the ore-producing dungeon. Daichi remarked that assaulting dungeons couldn't be the city's main industry, considering its wild nature. However, he was incorrect. Despite its wilderness, it was effective. The magical ores were not depleted, and various species could harvest them. It was a magical point, though not as efficient and concentrated as Daichi's house. Additionally, some violent species settled near the city, but human weaponry was quite powerful. The city was meant for those who wished to embrace wilderness or enjoy physical labor. Hearing this, Daichi quickly stated that the city wasn't for him. He wasn't fond of physical labor. Hesti suggested that he would become incredibly wealthy if he went there. Daichi wasn't interested, as he wouldn't know how to spend more money even if he had it. Suddenly realizing something, he asked Hesti if she needed money. She responded that while money wasn't necessary for survival, it could buy many tools for making magic staves. Daichi, smiling, told her to let him know whenever she needed money. Hesti, taken aback, asked if he was serious. She explained that good materials were expensive and even more so if they were compatible with her bones. Daichi said he didn't know where to spend his money, so giving it to someone who needed it would be more effective. Hesti happily accepted, promising to buy many materials next time. She would repay him with a different staff, as he would need a backup anyway. Daichi agreed, jokingly reminding her to make a really good one. He was not only happy to help Hesti but also pleased to have found a new and beneficial way to invest. While the black-haired girl mentioned by the adventurers is currently visiting Diana, Hesti has once again created another staff and handed it over to Daichi. To begin, she had made this staff as a prototype. Daichi, holding the staff, is surprised by its quick completion. He remarks that it's a shame to use materials from her travels for just a prototype. He questions if it's really okay for him to use it. Hesti, with a smile, assures him that she doesn't mind. She can always buy more materials during her nearby shopping trips. After all, she has already received payment from Daichi, so she can spend it freely. Daichi admires Hesti, calling her a true dragon king who has traveled the world and knows exactly where to find the necessary materials. In this staff, Hesti has used the horn of an immortal unicorn from a distant land, making it incredibly durable. However, as Daichi eagerly takes it, his magical power accidentally destroys it. Apologetically, he tells her that it's broken, or rather, shattered before he could even use it. Hesti isn't too bothered, saying it's fine. As an alchemist, her joy lies in seeing her creations used, even if they end up broken. This time, Hesti had focused too much on durability, neglecting flexibility. She decides to remake it. Daichi encourages her, but cautions against overworking. He promises to fully support her efforts. Hesti, revitalized, loudly declares she'll take on the challenge and create many more. Daichi watches her, amused and reassured by her burning alchemist spirit. He suspects that his staff collection is about to grow significantly. Meanwhile, back in Prussia, the adventurers have returned to a tavern. They joyfully order a second round of beer, laughing and relieved to be alive. The group observes their leader, noting how quickly he's moved on from today's events. Another confirms it, signaling a night of merriment ahead. Ever since the group was terrified by Daichi, the leader seems to have been profoundly affected. They notice he's recovering. He laughs loudly, admitting that he wasn't just shaken, but truly terrified. In their eyes, Daichi is now a figure of immense dread. Even when they had their weapons ready, they stood no chance against him. Despite being high-level adventurers, they felt insignificant in front of Daichi. One of them comments that although they were captured, Daichi didn't take anything from them. They realized that Daichi is different from common bandits or corrupt knights. They've met many heroes, but Daichi is the first who harbored no malice. Finding someone both powerful and kind is exceedingly rare. Now, they're even ready to fight for Daichi if he ever needs them. As they begin their uncertain journey into the magical forest, Diana feels compelled to guide the mysterious black-haired girl named Anne. There's no reasonable excuse to refuse Anne's request. On their way, Diana explains that the dragons nesting in this area are mostly aging ones. But she's sure and already knows this. And confirms, mentioning that the central city is highly vigilant about this forest, and she's researched various fields herself. And cryptically reveals her knowledge of a valley deep within the forest. Diana can't yet fathom Anne's true intentions, but senses that Anne isn't armed to take down any dragons. Diana reminds herself not to be deceived by Anne's appearance. The young woman before her, despite her age, has risen to a deputy commander position in the central city. Any lapse in vigilance that exposes a secret could lead to major trouble. Diana plans to show Anne the dragon's nest from a distance, discuss some countermeasures, and then immediately return to the castle. That seems to be the best scenario for today. Her utmost priority is to avoid any trouble for Daichi. Diana thinks everything will be fine as long as she can ensure this minimum. She prays that no unexpected events occur. Suddenly, Anne stops and calls out to Diana, saying she has a question. Diana approaches Anne, telling her to ask away if her questions are about dragons. Anne, however, alerts her to something else trying to approach them. They spot a golem made of black mud, something Diana has never seen before, realizing their plan is now awry. Meanwhile, in Daichi's land, he is admiring the newly completed house. It's oversized but looks quite fine after his morning's adjustments. Lost in his work, he turns to find Hesti, wearing a cloak, standing beside him. Daichi asks why she's dressed like that. Hesti explains she's going to the city to buy materials for the staff with the money he gave her yesterday. She adds that she'll be quick and start working on the staff upon return. Before Daichi can thank her, she disappears. They laugh at her speed, doubting her early return. Sakura informs him that even in human form, Hesti can use a bit of her dragon power. They set aside this matter, start eating, and discuss plans for rice cultivation to ensure food supply. Daichi continuously praises the delicious rice balls, claiming he could eat them forever without getting bored. While they are dining, Diana, followed by the monster, rushes in, surprising Daichi. He asks what's happening and who the girl running behind Diana is. Annoyed, he questions why they entered his area. Diana, almost in tears, apologizes, explaining they were chased here by that creature. Daichi, noting her first action is to apologize, decides not to get angry. Still, he yells to get his peaceful lunchtime back. His shout, filled with magical power, shatters the monster into pieces. Diana falls to the ground, while Anne seems the least affected. Diana gets up, complaining of pain, mentioning it's been a while since she took a hit from him. Daichi, feeling guilty, awkwardly asks if she's okay. This incident brings back memories of their first encounters for both of them. Diana gets up, making some movements to show she's alright. Daichi says that's good and requests her to stop bringing things like dragons and mud golems to his house. The sight of the shattered mud pile makes it hard for him to suppress his anger. Diana apologizes, explaining that they were unprepared for such an unusual monster. They had no choice but to run as fast as they could to get here, not knowing how to deal with it. Diana looks at the mud remains and says it was just a mud puppet, but she thought Daichi was the only one who could handle it. Daichi calmly replies that it was just a monster, after all. Diana adds that if it were just a few of them, she could have managed, but they were surrounded by more than 10 and had no other choice. She explains they came here after employing a hit-and-run tactic, managing to disperse most of the monsters, with only one following them to this place. Daichi, not particularly interested in the details, wonders why she brought it here. After a moment, he decides to let it pass this time, but then asks who the black-haired girl with her is. He noticed that even after being hit by his magical whirlwind, she seemed to withstand it without any impact. Diana introduces her as a guest and then turns to Anne, asking if she minds being introduced. Anne, still not fully composed after witnessing the monster blown away by a single shout, apologizes for being lost in thought for a moment. She introduces herself to Daichi as the deputy commander under the supreme commander of the central city. Daichi, hearing about the central city again, becomes very curious about it. He invites them to stay for tea, eager to learn more. Through their conversation, he finds out that the central city and the royal capital are collaborating. Daichi asks why they were coming out of the forest and about the monster, as it was his first time seeing such a creature. Diana admits it was her first encounter with a humanoid mud monster as well. She continues that they were attacked as soon as they entered the forest. Therefore, they have no idea where it came from. After finishing his tea, Daichi seriously points out that Diana should know the forest better than him. But even she admits it's her first encounter with such a creature. He speculates that the black mud monster might have recently emerged from somewhere within the forest. Diana disagrees, stating there's no black mud in the forest, confirming that it couldn't have naturally originated there. Daichi turns to Anne, asking if she knows anything about this. Anne declines to comment, as the forest is entirely new to her. She's only here because Diana is guiding her for research purposes. Daichi, curious, asks if there's even a guide involved. Diana confirms, explaining they are here for her to teach and about dragon countermeasures and the magical forest. Diana, worried Daichi might misunderstand, adds that she never intended to bring the leader of another city to his house. Daichi responds, saying he's just an ordinary person living in this forest. Diana continues, emphasizing she had no intention of bringing outside leadership here. Anne, noticing the conversation pausing, inquires about the staff beside Daichi. She senses a dark and powerful energy emanating from it and asks if she can hold it. Upon touching it, she loudly proclaims it's made from a dragon king's bone, a sight she hasn't seen in a long time. Diana, hearing this, exclaims even louder, questioning if it's a dragon king's staff. Daichi, confused, wonders why they are so interested in it. Diana informs him that it's a magnificent masterpiece, usually kept in treasure vaults, and is the most powerful item given to sorcerers during national disasters. Daichi is surprised, questioning the staff's power and considering if he should apologize to Hesti for using it to smash things. Diana says she knew he had a powerful item. Daichi explains that he was just recently gifted it. Diana is about to explain to Anne that there's someone else living here when Anne suddenly disappears, running towards Hesti who has just returned. Anne loudly calls Hesti her sister, expressing her joy at their reunion. Diana and Daichi, sitting beside them, feel almost invisible as Diana comments on Anne's excitement. Daichi turns to ask what's happening, wondering what kind of peculiar person Diana has brought along. Seeing Diana's hesitation, he guesses she didn't foresee this either. Hesti explains to them that Anne is the Iron Dragon King, and she used to take care of her. Daichi is surprised to hear this, asking again if Hesti really took care of her. It's hard to believe that someone who looks like a child was taking care of someone who appears to be an adult. Someone explains that Hesti's appearance doesn't reflect her true age because she's a dragon king. Observing their close bond, Daichi understands that Hesti is dearly loved. Anne, on the verge of tears, agrees, saying Hesti has helped her immensely. Daichi reflects on how mistaken he was to think of her as an ordinary person upon their first meeting. Whenever he perceives someone as ordinary, they turn out to be the opposite, like Hesti and Anne. He wonders if there's something wrong with his perception, or is it fortunate that these dragon kings appear ordinary. Diana, still in disbelief, feels she must discuss this revelation herself. The deputy commander of the central city is a dragon king, and she's unsure how to report this. Daichi thinks this must be a difficult decision for her. Once Hesti and Anne separate, he asks why a dragon king would become the deputy commander of the central city. Is she planning to annex the city? If so, it would certainly be a major issue he'd rather not get involved in. And informs him that her main job is just selling goods. She wanted to make her sister happy by making and selling equipment, but before she realized, she became the deputy commander. Hesty chimes in, explaining that Anne's ascent to Dragon King status was also quite unexpected. It's normal for someone to rise in rank without paying much attention. Daichi ponders the thought that an ordinary person can become the leader of a city. The central city seems good in many aspects. After all, Hesty is a renowned magician, and Anne is the deputy commander of the central city. There are too many Dragon Kings living in human form, seemingly harmless. Anne, still excited, says she is very happy to see Hesty again. Hesty runs behind Daichi, calling the child hyperactive. Almost harmless and normal, but her adoration is overwhelming, making her feel exhausted. Daichi laughs, saying that aside from matters concerning her, he guesses and is indeed harmless. And smiles at Daichi, expressing her happiness to meet him and see Hesty living well. Meeting someone as strong as him is considered their good fortune. She thanks him for his hospitality, having already spent much of her free time today. As Anne leaves, Hesty's face looks troubled, both of them guessing she'll return. Daichi starts cleaning up the mess from the black mud monster after everyone leaves. When they finish, it's dark, and he didn't expect the soil from the mud figure to be so heavy. Hesty, not sure how to explain, apologizes for the trouble and cause due to her presence here. The black figure incident is one of her abilities, so it's also Anne's fault. It's called Iron Release, and emits a mixture of rock and metal. The black figures are also made from this mixture. Daichi is only concerned that the soil is heavy due to the metal mixed in. He thinks the material can be collected from outside the garden. He then curiously asks why it attacked them. Was it because Anne has a habit of attacking herself when upset? Daichi asks seriously, really, and comments on the worrying nature of such a Dragon King. Hesty thinks she wouldn't do that in the city, but she definitely needs to discipline her younger sister. Daichi laughs, noting the Dragon King really can't control herself. He then asks Hesty if the dragon tribe living in human form isn't afraid of being exposed. Hesty confidently says as long as they are in human form, they surely won't be exposed. Moreover, she has concealed her magic power. Other Dragon Kings even drink and befriend humans, so they are quite free. Just when talking about concealing magic power, Daichi is leaking a large amount, but he doesn't feel it at all. Daichi, living comfortably until now, asks Hesty if there's a problem with his current state. Hesty straightforwardly says that if he were an ordinary person, he would have probably died long ago. Daichi asks her not to say such frightening things. Hesty explains that it's a fact, normally, he would need magic power to live. Daichi had thought of magic only as a convenient power, not realizing it affected his life. Hesty assures him that with the amount of magic he possesses, it shouldn't be a problem. However, it might be attracting monsters. Daichi is surprised, having thought it was just because his place was a hotspot. Hesty asks if he wants to try concealing his magic. She then creates a connection with her own magic to hide Daichi's and prevent leakage. Daichi feels like he's being fortified, it's lighter than wooden armor but weaker. Daichi wants to try it himself. He can do it from the first attempt, but it seems daily use will be difficult. Daichi, disheartened, says it's because he completely cut off his magic source. He didn't expect it, but cutting it off has its benefits. Hesty suggests it's better if he has some magic, so others don't underestimate him. Finally, they agree that Hesty will help whenever needed, while Daichi practices. Back in Prussia, Diana and Anne continue their unfinished conversation from Daichi's house. Learning that Anne is a Dragon King, Diana was so shocked her heart almost leapt out of her chest. Anne sincerely apologizes, promising to be gentler next time. Diana asks if the secretary of the armed city knows about this. Anne replies no, her being stuck in this situation was just a coincidence, and the secretary doesn't know she's a Dragon King. Anne usually takes up secretarial duties, mainly checking security and supporting adventurers. Diana thinks it's alright as long as she's working for others and the royal capital is safe. Diana, recalling the black figures, asks what they are. If they are indeed a new species, they must be dealt with immediately. And calmly explains that she created the figures, apologizing that the black humanoid was her doing. She knew that Daichi, the owner of the Dragon Vein, was very powerful, and couldn't approach him without risking being killed, so she released the figure. She also wanted to probe the situation in the magical forest. But it turns out Daichi is kind-hearted, rendering her plan useless. Diana says she was initially afraid of Daichi, so she can understand En's feelings at that time. By the way, Diana wants to know the outcome of the forest survey, and reveals that the results are worse than she imagined. The dungeon of the armed city is expanding deeper into the forest. This is also the reason En took up the position of deputy secretary of the city. Thanks to the dragon vein, the forest around Prussia has become extremely rich in magic. The dungeon feeds on this magic, growing like a living creature. At this rate, its arrival here is inevitable. While investigating the area with the figures, and discovered several gaps linking the place to the dungeon. If left unchecked, the monsters might leave the dungeon and gradually encircle Prussia. Diana is surprised that just as the dragon tribe issue is resolved, another problem arises. And continues, saying the cycle of appearances depends on certain conditions, so she can't predict the exact days. But if the dungeon continues to grow, it could be just a matter of days. The way to minimize damage is simple: fight and eliminate the monsters. Diana says if she uses the city's protective shield, she can't maintain it for long. They currently don't need to worry about the forest area with Daichi there. The monsters can't get close to him, and even if there's a dungeon in the forest, it's not a problem. The issue they need to focus on is the city's security. Moreover, they need to prepare contracts with adventurers. Diana feels increasingly overwhelmed with the upcoming challenges, and says if Diana has any questions about the dungeon, please ask. She came to the capital specifically to prevent this situation. Diana comfortably lies beside the window, soaking in the early sun. She whispers how long it's been since she last relaxed like this. Sakura comes to refill the tea, telling her to rest easy. From high up, she observes Hesti heading into the city. Sakura informs her that Hesti plans to gather materials for a staff. Daichi reflects on how he damaged the spare one yesterday, guessing Hesti must remake it. He still remembers creating a huge golem that grew rapidly. Sakura shares that Hesti enjoys doing that work, her magical aura becoming distinctive when she's happy or joyous. That's how Sakura can understand her feelings. Daichi says that's good, but he can't perceive others' emotions through their aura like Sakura. He asks if it's because he doesn't practice diligently. Sakura replies it might be a reason, but mainly it's due to his enormous magical power. People need to pay close attention to observe the breath of small creatures, and the same applies to magic. Daichi asks if Sakura can recognize it, to which she responds that she's a house, so she's very sensitive to others' emotions. Daichi suddenly asks if Sakura doesn't want to go to the city. She says she isn't that interested. She just needs to take care of her master, stay beside him, and observe Daichi's daily life. This is her greatest happiness. Daichi laughs, saying he's glad to hear that, but doesn't she feel lonely when he leaves her alone at home? He continues, asking if she doesn't want to go out and buy things she desires. Sakura responds that she needs nothing because she is a house and just needs her owner. Daichi realizes that Sakura doesn't require anything, even though outside food is delicious. He still thought there might be a few things that could make her life more comfortable. Sakura, after listening for a while, says that Daichi also likes going into the city. He feels it's not really necessary, as he finds everything he needs around the house. Daichi laughs, maybe the most important thing is just being at home. Hearing this, Sakura quietly wipes away a tear. Sakura says these words make her feel incredibly happy. Daichi thinks he doesn't want to go to the city just out of laziness, but at least it makes her happy. Sakura looks at him and says that ultimately, what she wants most is to take care of Daichi when he's at home. Tasks like cooking, doing laundry, preparing the bath, and welcoming the new day together make her very happy. Daichi also feels that leaving these tasks to her makes life wonderful. Thanks to Hesti's help, Daichi has created a large number of golems. Holding the new staff in his hands, he feels it's fantastic, it doesn't even crack. Hesti stands beside him, rubbing her eyes for a while. She admits she worked on it non-stop without any rest. Hesty, holding her stomach, says she's hungry. Daichi picks an apple from above and asks if she wants to eat it. Hesty accepts the apple, eating it whole, including the seeds. He thinks she must be really hungry. After finishing one apple, she says it's full of magical power, so one is enough for her. Daichi expresses concern, saying Hesty doesn't have to rush the staff, he can wait. Hesty, understanding yet worried, notes that his magical power is being consumed more each day. If she doesn't hurry, she might not finish in time. Recently, the golems have become more detailed, stronger, bigger, and more powerful. Daichi, standing beside her, finds this amusing. She could have said they're more formidable. But it's okay as long as she understands that the more detailed they are, the more magical power they consume. Daichi sincerely thanks her for everything, from gathering materials to making the staff. Hesty says it's nothing, as it's also her hobby, and besides, he has paid a lot of money. Daichi remembers that the materials for the staff included her bones. She clarifies that what they refer to as bones are more like claws and scales. She can obtain them when shedding scales, and even if they run out, they can be replaced. Daichi, amazed, asks how she can replace them again. She says there are many dragon kings with similar bones. There might be some differences in magical power or hardness, but the materials are interchangeable, so they can be used as substitutes. For example, Anne has similar bones, and coincidentally, as soon as her name is mentioned, Anne appears. Anne runs over from a distance, asking if her sister was calling her. Daichi greets Anne, acknowledging that they were just talking about her. Anne rushes to hug Hesty and then greets Daichi good morning. Anne notices a group of golems nearby and, astonished, asks what they are. She can sense a dense magical power and inquires if these are golems. Daichi confirms they are made from the apple tree. Hesty lazily adds that they also contain a bit of incantation. She's surprised that Anne noticed. Anne, unable to believe her eyes, says it's the first time she's seen such precision and is amazed that Daichi can use incantations. Diana wonders what that is, acknowledging it seems great, but Daichi is not some rare creature. Anne, realizing her excitement, apologizes to Daichi, explaining she used to make golems too, hence her surprise at his creations. Daichi asks why Anne is visiting today. And shyly says she wants to apologize for the trouble she caused before. She asks if he heard that the mud puppet was her creation. Daichi replies he heard it from Hesty. And apologizes again for that incident. Daichi says he dislikes that she dirted his garden but forgives her since she apologized. And anxiously asks if there's a punishment aside from her apology. Curiously, she inquires about how he plans to punish her. Daichi tells her not to worry, as he's already forgiven her and there's no punishment. He then asks Anne why she said sorry and why she's staying. And reveals she brought some magical items she made for him. Daichi, curious about the magical items, is handed a potion by Anne, extracted from Dragon King's blood. It's affordable and can heal almost everything from cuts to broken bones. And proudly states that the potion works immediately upon use. Daichi laughs, calling it a cure-all. Hesty explains that magical items are objects infused with a certain amount of magical effect. The items have various effects, both in everyday life and in war. Daichi laughs heartily, saying this is just as he expected from her. Hesty proudly states that whenever he doesn't understand something, she always explains it to him. And enjoys making these items and excels at it. And tells him that as the newest Dragon King, she likes creating items after infusing them with her own magic, though initially, she just imitated Hesty. However, Anne can't make magic staffs like Hesty, who excels at crafting refined weapons. Hesty, not to be outdone, tells Daichi that she can only make staffs, but Anne can make a variety of items, from potions to support items. Diana, listening to their mutual praise, laughs, realizing that both are skilled in different areas. And adds that the most impressive is the one who made these golems with absolute precision. Daichi, not wanting to continue the topic, thanks Anne for the magical items she brought. Before leaving, Anne reminds them that there seem to be monster surges in the magical forest now. She informs them of some issues occurring beneath the forest, but reassures them it's only temporary and they shouldn't worry too much. Daichi acknowledges, saying he'll be more vigilant. After and departs, wishing to bring more potions if they run out. Hestie decides to go to sleep to make up for staying up all night making the staff. Daichi thanks her for her hard work. Inside the Prussia castle, Diana asks the knight captain about the preparation of the magic and water shields. Receiving an answer, she orders the commencement of the Jia examination, entrusting the observation to the knight captain. Okudo, standing beside her, accepts the task. Once ready, he shouts to the sorcerers below to start. The sorcerers begin chanting, calling forth water. Another group controls water projectiles, advancing. Diana, among them, reminds herself to remember the feeling of fighting the dragon previously. Next, they use fire spears, aiming to burn everything. Okudo, beside her, joyfully comments that everything is going as planned, princess. The ability to repel water bullets with the power of 10 sorcerers and Diana's incredibly fast spell casting is indeed a new record. Daichi modestly says it's not that great and still needs improvement. Right now, it's only a bit stronger than the original magic. In reality, with this level, it's still not enough to even tickle a dragon. She recalls the magic she used when fighting the dragon at Daichi's house was much stronger than this. It should have been hotter and more penetrating. Okudo of the Night Order says it's still a significant amount of power. Daichi disagrees, stating that if she doesn't strive to increase her power now, she won't be able to catch up with him. Not wanting to continue on this topic, Daichi asks about her next schedule. If she's not mistaken, she has paperwork to do and then plans to visit Daichi's house. Diana says she will rely on everyone during this time. At Daichi's house, Hestie looks at the spare staff and comments that he hasn't broken it yet today. It wasn't in vain that she stayed up all night making it. However, upon closer inspection, Hestie notices several cracks in it. Daichi can't see them with the naked eye, but there are now mana leaks from it. Hestie explains this is why she constantly improves it. Daichi once again depends on her but asks her not to overwork herself. As they are still talking, Diana arrives. Daichi, seeing her, comments that she seems in a good mood today. Diana smiles, saying it's true. She had a bit of a hard time, but her training session was excellent, so she feels great. Today, she brings a large bag. During Daichi's last visit to the town, the herbal farms absorbed mana from him, resulting in an extremely bountiful harvest. She pours out the herbs, saying this is just a small part of it, so he should feel free to take it. Daichi looks at the pile of herbs, thinking he will accept them. He anticipates having a significant amount of money stuck at home soon. Perhaps Hestie could use that money to buy materials. On the same day after Diana's return, and visits again. She brings a top-designed portable potion flask for Daichi. It's a container designed to keep high-quality potions safe. It's also very effective. He can use it immediately if injured while gardening. Hestie examines the flask and asks if she used Dragon King's skin to make it. Anne's eyes light up, affirming it and impressed that Hestie could identify the material with just a glance. Daichi, puzzled, asks if Anne used her own skin to make it. And proudly confirms that she did, making it nearly indestructible, even against his mana. Hestie also uses her body to make staffs, but why do they frequently use their bodies as materials? And nonchalantly explains that it's just a small area and regenerates in a few seconds. Daichi, reassured, agrees to accept it, feeling a bit embarrassed as he seems to be always receiving gifts from Anne. And laughs heartily, telling him not to worry, sharing the sky with Hestie already makes her happy. Besides, she has learned a lot from observing Daichi's golems, considering them to be exemplary magical tools. As a creator herself, she finds them inspirational. Daichi asks if she also makes golems. Hearing this, and summons Iron Breath in the form of a mud ball. She admits she can make them, but their quality is incomparable to Daichi's. She says he'll understand once he compares them. Looking at the mud ball, Daichi acknowledges Anne's ability. Hestie explains that Anne is the Iron Dragon King, hence her ability to manipulate both mud and metal, laying a foundation for creating magical tools as a new Dragon King. and points to the metal-mixed mud ball and says it's her golem, still in development and not as durable, but strong enough to fight monsters. Daichi attentively admires it, calling it cute. Hesti compliments N, noting the increased mana infused in it. After talking with Hesti for a while, Daichi starts studying the golem. He later asks N if it would be okay for him to create a golem like that, using the mud she previously created that he collected. And theorizes that it should be possible since the material is still there, but notes the process would be entirely different from making a wooden golem and might be challenging. Despite this, Daichi wants to give it a try. To Anne's surprise, with a few simple movements, Daichi successfully creates a golem. Seeing her astonished face, he says it's done and not to worry about the details. At the boundary between Prussia and the Enchanted Forest, Diana and Okudo have been relentlessly training in hunting monsters in recent days. Diana, noticing the fatigue of the night captain, suggests they rest for the day. Okudo gratefully agrees with the princess. Daichi acknowledges Okudo's help but wonders if his team will be alright in his absence. Okudo assures that he has given orders, so there should be no problems. He mentions that leaving the princess alone here might be more dangerous. Since the dungeon is active today, both need to be cautious. Daichi agrees, noting that even though the monster tide hasn't arrived, they are only hunting ordinary monsters for now. If Anne's prediction is correct, the tide should arrive in 2 to 3 days, but it has been more than 3 days since their conversation. This delay gives everyone more time to prepare. Okudo remarks they are fortunate to have many adventurers still in the capital. The group of adventurers who stayed from last time is a high-level group, having completed 90% of their missions from the central city. He is grateful they are still in the capital, helping to defend the city. Diana comments on the strength of the nearby monsters, noting that an ordinary adventurer would struggle to face 2 at a time. Their sharp fangs could easily kill a person, and in the depths of the forest, one could be swallowed by a giant slime if they lose focus. Many monsters require cooperation to handle effectively. Waiting until the creatures in the dungeon start moving together will no longer be a joking matter. It would be better if they had enough time to reinforce their defenses, but current issues are piling up. Okudo says he has invited more adventurers, but it will require a lot of resources. Currently, they don't have enough supplies to create an impenetrable barrier around the city. Diana states that regardless of the situation, they can't afford any delays and need to shift their focus. She decides to inquire about the situation inside the forest from the werewolves and leaves the task of checking the defense lines to Okudo. Okudo apologizes, as usually, this task would be assigned to a messenger. When Diana arrives at the werewolf territory, the werewolf chieftain greets her. He informs her that he has prepared a place in the square where they can go to report. On her way there, Diana notices that everything is developing well. Although she has visited many times before, it's becoming more vibrant and peaceful. She believes that in a few decades, this place will be perfect. The werewolf chieftain tells her that thanks to King Daichi, more trades have been conducted, and as a result, their infrastructure has improved.